What's this?
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning for our city council budget meeting. We'll go ahead and get started. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Or yours? Okay.
Cheatham.
Here.
Lurick.
Here.
Mangan.
Here.
Mansfield.
Here.
Marchand.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Glad.
Here. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 2. It's fiscal year 2024 budget presentation. Mayor Blatt will present a draft budget proposal to council members for their consideration and input. And I'm going to change Mayor Blatt to financial staff. We'll present this budget, and then we'll just go from there and see where we are.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor and Council. Gene Hill with the city finance team, and then I've also got Bonnie with me from the finance team. So the way that this works, if I can, actually I'd like to make one statement before I get started, if you don't mind, is that just to remember as we're going over the excess reserves, it's, a balance sheet is a day, so those will change, right? Every day it will move up and down. I just wanted you to be aware of that because I think sometimes people get the idea that that is a fixed number, but it changes every day because, again, a balance sheet is just a point in time, which is how the reserves are calculated off of, okay? So the way that this is set up is that we can, I'm going to go from left to right. We've got the revenue column, which brings in all of the revenues from the revenue tab. Then we've got the expenditures, which brings it in from the expenditure tab. Then the next tab gives you the choice. If you put in 1, it brings in the over the 3% that we had authorized, asked them to do. That'll bring it in. It's not approved into the expenditure. It'll also bring in the CapEx if you type in 2. If you type in 3, it will bring in both. And then it'll give us the budget overage or shortage where we need to make corrections. The next column is, for example, if there's a shortfall, we can type in whatever you would like to add or reduce, and it will take care of it just by doing that. And then we've got the reserve column, and then again, the balance on the end. Is that clear? Any questions? Okay. So for the general fund, excluding the CapEx and the overage, we're at a shortfall of about $492,000. And you can see that right here in this shortfall, right?
Yes, we got to.
One quick clarification.
Yes.
That shortfall, is that based on estimated revenue with the 3% raise as well as the 1% foregone?
Yes, that's
Okay.
the 3%, the foregone, and then also other non-tax things, like the sales tax,
Right.
the fuel tax. All of that rolls up into this 37,
Okay, great.
okay?
Scott, did you have a question?
Uh-oh,
Okay.
mesmerized,
You gotta keep those figures down, man, otherwise.
praying.
And then for the entire tax, it's 811,000 short before you get into anything else. So I think this is our task, at hand, is where would you like to make changes? Would you like to add the over 3%? Do you like to see it, the CapEx?
So would you go back down to that tax ask there, down? So right there, if I'm looking at that cemetery, we are $15,000 over, is that correct?
Correct.
And airport, $1,043,817.
Correct.
Now, they're working in their reserves right now, and that's why that is. So if we eliminate that, that does not help us.
So no, that does not help really because also you have on the street side, there's 739,000 that's overage, but they've also, and Tom could speak to this, but I believe that $1 million extra that he wanted for paving would utilize that.
That would be for that. So I would suggest, council, that you don't mess with the airport because we're using their reserves. But I would suggest the library and the cemetery both cut those two, the 2,000 and the 15,000, and cut those. And they'll have to figure that out with their budget. The 570,000 for cemetery and the 2.23 million for library.
So, Gene, could you explain, so why is the street department is an enterprise fund, right?
It's,
So why is that-
It's a hybrid. It's a hybrid. It receives tax dollars, property tax. It has a taxing ability of itself, but it also receives, funds from the highway.
Right.
And
Okay,
so-
got it. I had that backwards. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I have a question for you. You just said cut the library, but you said 2 point something million?
No. The library, their budget's 2.2 million, and I'm suggesting that you cut the $2,700.
Okay, that's what I thought, but then you said
Flatten
million.
that out, and in a $2 million budget, they should be able to find the $2,700.
Right, okay, I just want to be sure.
That would be my suggestion. It's going to be a little bit harder for cemetery, but
Problem solved.
cemetery can figure that out.
So as an example, if I type this in as a reduction rate, they'll have to find it.
Yeah, you cut $2 million, it'd solve all kinds of problems.
Yeah. But it creates some more.
Yeah.
So if on this line, you can see if we type in that the library will have to figure out, Eric will have to come up with the 2,773, but then that takes away from the 810, right? It takes that shortfall out.
Right.
So that's how it works.
So
Just so you can see that.
808,000 is what that looks like then.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
can we see what, if going back up to the top, because that overage, so right now, just in the general fund, we have the shortfall of just about $500,000.
Correct.
Can we see what it would look like if we approved the 3% for all departments? I know it would be over, but how much over are we talking?
So you want to see, bring in the 3% that's not approved, is that?
Correct,
Make sure I
yeah,
understand that?
right, that's the 3% increase in the operating budget that's been requested, is that correct?
This is, go ahead.
I was going to say, explain the 3%. So have you included the 3% into everybody's operating budget with this?
So everything that was on May 25th, right, we approved the new employees. We approved a bunch of things that are all part of that 3% overage that is already included in their expenditure or their budget. If you wanted to add things that are not included, this is the tab that shows, so it's an additional 1.5 million. However, if you back out, the police ask, this is for when they're on deployment, so it's authority, it's not dollars into the budget. If you back that 500,000 out, you really only have, it's $1 million that would add to.
So that 3%, that when you hit one right there, you added everything that was not included in the 3%.
Exactly.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
So
Sorry, I misunderstood then.
No,
Okay.
I'm glad that, I know this is new, but I think in the future, this will really help us speed it up.
Can we look back at that over 3% list as well as just a quick glance at the over 3% and then the capital,
Absolutely.
the CapEx list? Okay, I'm ready to see the
CapEx.
CapEx if everyone else is.
And as you can see on this one, the cemetery, this portion was approved ARPA.
Yeah.
So that would lower that to 2.7-ish, right? 2.2.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So the revenue income there, that includes what additions? The 3%
So if we're talking revenues, do
revenues, yes.
you mind if I move to the revenue tab?
Yeah, please.
Glad, whatever will work. So this will, is this answering your question, Brent?
Yeah, that's,
So it shows we took the 3%,
Okay.
right? And then we also asked for the 1% on the
okay,
foregone.
that was my question. So the 42,098, that includes a 3% and the 1% foregone?
Yes, and all the other
Right.
sales tax, interest earned, all of those things are included in that.
And those are all the things we estimated
Yes, that we
at
went,
a conservative,
and that we went over
level.
on May 25th. But if you want to see those, I'll bring it up. Just let me know where you want me to go.
Why don't you pull those up?
Okay?
And council, you probably should look at that and see if you're still comfortable with those numbers.
We haven't received any notice from AIC or otherwise that would, prompt a change, have we? Any of those numbers?
No, these numbers really came from AIC and their estimates.
Right,
is
and
what they
nothing,
came-
no
they-
change. Okay.
Nothing's really changed.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
but the revenue that we're projecting includes 1% foregone.
Yes.
I will not vote for foregone taxes and increasing our community's taxes by taking that foregone. That's $320-odd thousand extra tax ask.
$323,000.
So if we don't take that, that's an add, right, to the 1 point whatever.
We'll make it about 1.2 million versus 800,000 if we back that out.
So if I'm right, and as I understood this, really what we're looking at is reducing that $500,000 to zero, and that balances it out.
Yes, that takes care of the general fund,
Yeah.
and then we have an additional 300,000 in the other tax jurisdiction or entities that we need to bring that down as well.
which 500,000 are you talking about?
So if you go back to the original sheet there,
Let me drop out the,
see that number that says budget overage? We
so
just,
if I take out back out the,
I see.
it's the 500,000 right
492.
there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Can we go back to the over 3% tab if everyone's okay with that?
absolutely.
So I remember, and I guess I'm not seeing it. There was some requests from planning, I believe, in the nature of for trails. There was an extra $150,000 for trail management or for personnel, but they also needed for there were, man, I'd have to pull my notes and I left that
This is
notebook
what you were
at home.
looking for right here, Josh.
That's it. So have they included that? Or why did that not get included on that first list?
So this is already included, right? That's overtime, so that's, yeah. And then the not included, it should show up. When I do that tab, right, it should show up. The not-
Okay, so that's
That's
that money, and that included, what was in that? There was the,
There was hiring someone to help, I believe. I can't remember which part we were going to hire somebody and which part we were going to do in-house, but redo our zoning.
there it is. Yes, those. It's the open space park study,
Yes.
housing study, and the downtown design. Is that what's included in that?
I cannot answer that.
Okay.
But there was also redo the zoning.
I'll find out, Josh.
Okay.
Well, we kind of need to know now. Would somebody go see if Brent's around? And would somebody call any department heads that aren't here and tell them to get down here, please? Thank you.
In the interim, I have another question.
Yes.
So Gene, with your spreadsheet, and just as an exercise, I'm not advocating this. So the expenditures are based on a 3% sort of across the board increase. Is that correct?
Yes, with the caveat that on the personnel, there was, it was a 3.5% increase plus a step. And then also, any new personnel that were approved on the 25th, those personnel are included in there as well.
So would you be able to easily run your spreadsheet to say, okay, rather than say a 3% increase, what would that number have to be in order to balance this? To work it backwards? You know, maybe it's 2.96% or,
We could do that.
but it's not easy for you to do like
No,
on
no,
the fly
it's,
here.
so the way we've done it is versus doing it by percentage, we could drive it by percentage, but we're driving it by absolute dollars. So if you wanted to go through line by line and just take out a particular dollar amount, that was the way that it's built. But we can easily change this to where I can drive it by percentage.
No, I'd be just curious what that number might be. I mean, is it, you know, we've
go from-
suggested 3%, maybe it's, you know, again, 2.95 balances the budget
To get down to that 800,000, you're saying,
to get it to zero out to balance.
just on, you're saying just on personnel or on everything?
Well, on everything that we've increased, on everything, I guess.
Everything?
Well, I
don't know if that makes any
I think
sense.
we need to see what is included, everything that is included in this. All personnel included in this, all asks that have been included in this is what we need to see.
So if I understand that correct, Mayor, you'd like me to add the CapEx and the 3% into this, or just what's already included?
I think that if we can see everything that has been included, all of the asks, from personnel costs to equipment that have been included.
I don't think on the over,
I don't think it's in there.
on your expense tab.
Yeah, I think it's in
Which,
there.
if I understand it correctly, would that mean in the original spreadsheet that we have, it would not include the over 3% or the CapEx? It would just be sort of the basic,
Correct.
the bare bones?
This combined tab would not include on the over 3%,
Right.
it's not included, is
Right.
not included in this, or the CapEx.
Right.
Josh?
What that does include, though, is the personnel increase that was approved, both in numbers as well as in the pay grade and the step, or the scale change in the step. And then, does it also include a 3% increase in operations?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have that list. It was Parks and Open Space Master Plan, Housing Study, and Downtown Design Guideline Update, and the Zoning Ordinance Rewrite were the things that we talked about.
In that $300,000.
Planning, yeah. I think it was 325,000, and those are for the consultant-driven projects. They said they could begin the process of the zoning ordinance rewrite in-house, but it's going to be a major project that they would prefer to have a consultant on, but they could begin that in-house if we needed.
So none of this is included right here, right? That's how I'm looking at it. This is,
No, this,
That's all should be
oh,
included.
All of them.
this is all the tax.
we got tax, got you.
And it does not, I think there's, yeah, that's all of the tax. If we want to get rid of what's not included, I can do that very easily.
Pull out what's not included. And let's see what the dollar amount that is included in all of this stuff.
So take out that number, 608,000.
So, but what we're missing is all of the other employees, finance employees. No, we don't. We've got them in there.
So if I understand this right, with the personnel and their 3% is in. We asked everybody to do a budget, 3% over, that's in. That's what we're looking at. With those two things put together, we're $500,000 off in.
Well, I think it's more than that. And, you know, when we talk about, and personnel, right, we talked about a 9.98%, right, healthcare. Per medical increase. I think there was a Percy increase of 7. But 7%.
We're not getting around either one of those.
So those increases, you know, anyway, it's, I would have to go, I don't have that detail for you right now, but I can get that, the breakout of that.
So right now, we're trying to decide, so basically everything that I guess needs to be included, right? The personnel, the health benefits, all that's in there. So we're just deciding with an additional $500,000, what do we want to approve from the overage of those 3%? That's what we're sitting here doing now.
So we're $500,000 over the amount we can get that we've planned.
No, I think we're 500 below.
No, we're
We're over.
We're over. So, and that's without any of the,
That's without anything else.
What we need to do
Okay.
is cut
got it.
$500,000 out of
Got
the
it.
That's out of the general.
Okay.
general fund.
Mayor, for clarification,
There's more.
we've got to cut 500,000 out, and that does not include any expenditures for anything over 3% or any CapEx. It's just the bare basics.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, I had it backwards. This makes much more
500,000 is
sense.
just general fund.
Yeah.
Right, if you go, everything is 811,000.
Right.
And then if we don't include the 1% foregone, it's going to be about 1.2 million.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
One thing that I had talked to Heather a little bit about, and I would like to consider, we had talked about doing the $2,500 ARPA, or not ARPA, excuse me, $2,500 VIBA, is that? Yeah, VIBA bonus every 5 years for employees, as both a opportunity to help reduce health benefits, but also as a means of kind of retention to try and encourage employees to stay and hit those markers. I remember though, so last year when we redid the pay table, we increased the amount of the raise that comes at the 6-year mark, and you also become vested in Percy at the 5-year mark. And so both of those are kind of already incentive structures that exist. And I would be interested in seeing what would happen if we removed the $2,500 VIBA bonus for the first 5-year mark. And so you then get it at 10, 15, 20, 25, et cetera, but not at 5 years.
Is that included in this budget?
It is included in the budget. I was trying to get how we could reduce that, take that out. Here we go.
I think we're going to find out.
Heather Buchanan, Human Resources Director. So on the 25th of May, it was tentatively approved as part of the budget build, and that was loaded into the salary projection file, which then rolled into the budget. If we were to roll back anyone at a 5-year mark, it would save the city $80,000 this year. About $50,000 of that is tax.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a rough $50,000.
Sure.
Do you want to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's plan on rolling that back.
So, all right. This is not going to come out of parks, but I'm going to put a 50,000 here as a holder, just so we can show as we go. And then I will.
Does it need to be a negative? So on the
It should.
planning
442.
part, the three things that were part of the, where did I put it? That were part of what we were, the 325,000. And they rated those. The first was the open space master plan. The second was the housing study. And the third was the zoning ordinance. The total was 325. But what Brent had said at the time was if we couldn't do all three, that the zoning ordinance rewrite was the third priority, and they would begin doing that in-house. My question is how much, and maybe Christine can answer this, how much, if we cut that third one, we know the total's 325, but how much are we saving if we cut the zoning ordinance rewrite and begin that in-house?
Good morning, Christine Howe, Grants Manager. So my understanding is that the Parks and Open Space Plan was budgeted around 150,000.
That's what I have.
And so I don't have a calculator on the math there. The housing study, which was the second priority, I understand is the least costly of those three plans. So I believe that would be around 50 to 75,000 as well. So you'd be looking at about 225 for the two plans.
I had downtown design too, that they, 10,000.
Oh, down.
I
Oh,
believe that's grant funded.
That was
Yeah.
grant funded,
Yes.
okay.
That wasn't one of the three that made up the 325.
Right, and that's currently underway. We've already received the grant for that.
Yeah.
So where's the other 100,000 at?
Be the zoning rewrite.
Zoning.
So you're saying that zoning rewrite would be about 225?
No, the open space and the housing study, those two plans.
Oh, okay. So what was left was 100,000 for the zoning rewrite? Okay.
50.
I know it's working backwards, but I think it's important that we, as we're looking at this and making decisions, the $150,000 for the open space planning was in all of the over 3% asks, to me, my number one priority to see if we could include, because of how much grant funding we are losing out on for our Parks and Recreation open space. That investment gives us more dollars to accomplish projects in the future and can possibly help alleviate some of those concerns in the future. I would like to include the $150,000 in this tax solution worksheet, and then work from there.
How do people feel about the 100,000 on the zoning ordinance rewrite?
I wanted to clarify. Those numbers are included in our proposed expenditures here? They're not.
Those are the over 3%.
They are not, yeah.
So by approving them, we would be making these numbers even worse. Even worse.
Yes.
Okay, so just so I understand, so the numbers we have right here have the personnel changes and a 3% operational sort of across the board cut. They do not include any of these other sort of one-time expenditures like we're talking about here. Is that right?
That's correct, with a few exceptions, like the branding for the mayor councils. There's one or two.
Is that
that's a
in there?
CapEx.
Is that
branding
included, the
is
branding?
included.
The branding is included.
See, I think there's one spot to take, I don't know what that costs, I guess, when I look at it.
It'll
That's
cost a lot more.
$100,000.
It'll cost a lot more than 100 grand before we're done. But it's a beginning. But I think that's something that we may, we proposed 100 grand to do that this first year to get it started, whether we
Keep it or not.
cut that back, maybe cut that in half, and it would still give us a start, but we wouldn't be able to accomplish as much.
It's, should be right
I guess that's kind of what, I mean,
there.
the sad thing is it's going to cost departments in their operations more than 3% to survive. Everything's gone up more than 3%. And we asked them to take it to 3%. They did that for us. And, you know, I guess when I look at it, number one, I do not want to balance the budget on the employees' backs at all. We're way behind there. So to me, that's not even something to look at. I think as we look at this, we can find some of that money in, I hope, in things that we really don't need or we can put off for a year. I guess the other part of it is I would like to get to the end of this and then look at, you know, where you're at with the foregone money. After that, with what else is there, it's going to be tougher than I thought.
Can we look at the non-departmental, what's included within that particular line item?
Non-departmental in the expense tab.
Where did we go there?
So this is broken out by personnel, and then so you can see the expenditure of where, and obviously everybody knows that the personnel is the largest expenditure. This can kind of give you an idea. If I'm going too fast, I'm just trying to get down to the bottom of this so you can kind of get an idea of what
0800, what's in that budget?
0800, that would be like your fees for the AIC, you know, things like that. Also for the contributions to the local community, you know, the groups that came in on May 20, or the first Monday.
That's the ones I'd like to look at.
You can dig that up.
I have some of those. For the ass over.
So all of those asks from those community agencies, are those all included?
Yes, so all of those agencies that came included, I can pull up.
Is that under?
Or was that on the 25th?
Presentation.
Yeah, it was on the 25th. I apologize, I'm wrong. I have that. That was on the 25th we did that. I'm not sure that I have that.
Mr. Mayor, I have them. I have the ass.
Okay.
Aid for Friends was $8,000, and that's apparently what they have received. The college neighborhood asked for $4,500, and then that was up. I don't know how much they got the year before.
They didn't. That's 45
yeah.
new.
But so they wanted $4,500. Family Service Alliance, $17,500, stayed the same. Pocatello Free Clinic, $25,000, up $15,000 from a previous ask. Sika, $23,004 level. Senior Center, $35,000, stayed the same. Sister City, $2,500, I think that stayed the same. And Pocatello Visitor Center, $20,000, and that was up $5,000.
Gene, that was on 612.
612. Not sure that I don't have those. Would you like me to get those? We can go get those.
Well, we got the numbers right here.
Okay.
It's not much, but I would propose that we reduce those back to last year's numbers, not fund the college neighborhood, cut the free clinic 15 grand, and cut the visitor center 5 grand from their initial request.
I would agree with that.
It's $24,500.
So what does that do? Remove $24,500 from that?
24,000.
500.
500.
From the personnel asks, I would also consider removing the management assistant from the finance department.
What is that number?
I think it was 79.
70,000, something.
Okay, so there's 80,000 there, 79.
Gene, is that updating?
Yeah, it should be. If you go to the far side, right, this balance, it's that 150 that we put in for planning.
Okay.
She wanted
Oh, okay.
in, that
Yeah.
kicked that up.
We talked about cutting the 100,000 in half for the branding project. Do we want to put that in there? Or do we want to wait on that?
I think we hold off on
I
that.
think I'd hold off on that. I think that's something we need to do, so.
Mr. Mayor, during the police presentations, there was a decrease in personnel costs of about 1.5 million. Can we pull up the slides from the police presentation, please?
Where do you want to go for the police?
Yeah, from during the department head presentations.
Yep. You want the expenditure? part?
See, just go to slide, yeah, start with slide 5. Slide 4, please. 6. Sorry, I'll find what I'm looking for. Where was it?
I don't
Will you
remember.
pull back up 5 one more time? Yeah, here it is. Okay. So if you see on the personnel line, their personnel line drops 1.4 million here, but their budget, their operations budget increased by $2.7 million for a total of 3% increase in operating expenses. If you only do a 3% increase or even a 5% increase of just the operations line and allow the personnel line to go down, because there were a lot of retirements, if you don't do a overall 3% increase, you do only a 3% increase of their operations line and take the personnel decrease down. So what's 1.2 million times 3%?
$36,000.
Okay, you're just saying it's 300 grand about, it's a little bit more than 300, right?
$36,000.
Jeff, you do it.
So if you go back to that slide, please.
Yes.
That's a operations line increase of 300% almost.
But what's in that? Why is it so big? Why did it jump 2.7? Mike, we need to answer that question.
That's, I don't know. I don't know.
Mayor, Council, Eric Anderson. I think that what happened, I know the chief met with Gene, the numbers, the bottom line, the 18,988,843, that's correct. So we did the 3% on the operations. I don't know how the numbers got put in wrong, but if you do the 3% on the 1.225 and then you put the rest up in personnel, that is actually correct. And we provided that.
Okay.
But I don't know why it didn't get changed here.
Because I think,
So
I'm not
if
sure.
you add up the 13 million and the 3.9 million, it comes up to the 18,988, which is
Right.
accurate. But somehow, I don't know how the numbers got to this point wrong, but that extra 2 million needs to go up to the personnel.
but and so the reason my confusion exists, we were told that number, the reason the personnel went down was because of a lot of unexpected retirements that meant lower pay because of the officers who replaced them, right? Obviously, are going to cost less.
Right.
So I would like to find out where this is and what the I'd like to figure out what's wrong here. Because if it's true that personnel is going down by 1.4 million, and we were to increase operations up to even say 1.5 million, right? A $300,000 increase. That's more than the 3%.
I think the 3% was like $60,000.
Right.
Is all it actually is. And the accurate numbers were given. I just don't know why it wasn't fixed on here, but I don't think the savings it's not going to be that much, right? The personnel and the operations were just added in there incorrectly somehow, but the 18,988 is an accurate number.
The bottom line, Chief Roger Shaw, sorry I was late. I sat on a jury panel and got excused. So the 18,988 slide is correct at the bottom. The operation should read about approximately 1.26 million and change, and that the personnel should be 15 million. There was an error in the bottom slide, and we had sent that over for correction. I don't know why that slide's there. So that's.
So are these the numbers that are in the budget?
The 18,988,843 is. That number is in the budget.
So your personnel expenses went up.
Yes. When after that meeting, I went back and I looked at that and I said, well, our operations, there's no way that our operations went from 1.262 million to 3.9 million. That's wrong. And so when I did the math and it's 3% of what $1,225,943. It's 3% up from that on our operations.
Okay.
As requested.
I would like to see. I would just like to see this slide updated with the correct numbers, if possible.
I have it.
We did that May 25th. I don't know. I have a different slide.
Okay.
Let me see if we can have Brandy bring that over. I don't.
Just trying to get
Sure, no
clarification.
problem. I have it. I can
Great.
send that. It'd take me 2 seconds to go get it.
Overall, though, right, if I'm right, the percentage that you went up was 7.5% total. And part of that was the personnel costs of 3.5% or something like that.
So our operations went up, but the personnel costs, a lot of those were factored in because of our CBAs. We have no control over what the CBA is,
Right.
and those costs that go up related to that.
Does Heather provide you with the personnel number?
Yeah. Yes. Heather, and I know Heather and Gene worked on the personnel numbers, and the data that was there.
Okay. Heather, do you have those personnel numbers handy?
I have them for 24, I don't have them for 23.
Okay, I was looking for 24, yeah.
I've got 24 handy in my, I'd have to go back and grab that information.
I think,
Heather Buchanan, Human Resources Director. The final salary projection file that was loaded into the budget, and I'm not aware of any changes to the personnel side, came in at $15,697,785.
15,600,000?
Yep,
Okay.
15,697,758. 785, sorry. Yep.
Okay.
The 500,000 is really a deployment line. So
It's not included.
it's not included because it's, the deployment line it's based on income earned. Okay. And so the operations line was, you just increased that by 3%.
It's like
Okay.
60,000.
But that's not reflected in the spreadsheet.
That's not reflected here.
That still needs to be changed.
Right now.
Gotta find the email that I sent.
Sorry. What's the math? 15 million.
Pulling up the most recent on
Not
Okay, did you
1.7.
getting there.
And if we go back to the slide real fast.
find the,
It's right here.
oh, okay.
It would appear to me that number is still
It's
Two.
not totally.
too high based on a 3% increase.
Well, so our overtime budget did go up. We had discovered that last year our overtime actually decreased by 50,000. I
Okay.
don't know why. I tried to figure out through the budget and why it went down from $502 to $452,000, but I couldn't find where it got decreased. It was just, so that number, also our holiday pay is taken out of that line item.
Okay.
Obviously, our personnel costs have gone up. That line item is going down. Oh, we can't maintain that way. And with personnel costs going up, we added $251,000 to our
Okay.
overtime budget.
So that's from the overtime
Correct.
increases.
And
Okay.
overtime, holiday, court time,
Okay.
and all those extra costs that are in. So if that's where that's 251, and then our call out went up by 14,000.
Gene, what is that 512?
That's the delta between 23 and 24 on the operating budget. So if you take the difference between those two right there,
Can
that's the difference.
I
That's-
see the overtime? Is that on the slide? Or is that just on? Is that's from the initial one? Okay.
Slide. That should, the overtime should be included in the personnel costs.
I could have swore it was in the slide.
At 1.7.
That we,
So it is in the 1.7?
It's if you go back to two slides above, it is in that 18,988.
Wait, so Mr. Mayor, is overtime included in personnel calculations or is it included in operations calculations?
It should be included in personnel calculations. That's why you've seen the 14 to 15 million.
Right. So
That's not the
That's-
number I submitted.
So it's in the 15, not in the
1.7 is
1.7?
wrong.
This is,
But the
I need to
one,
go get, I need to
It
go
should-
get, I will go get my information from my office, and I'll be right back if that's okay with council.
yeah,
It should, overtime, any personnel expenses should be in personnel. And so that's where it should be, is that where that is, Heather?
So overtime, call out, on call are all part of the personnel budget, so you don't see them delineated in operating. So it's actually a position in the budget, so we can
Okay.
add all of the benefits associated with it. But overtime out of salary projections, and I don't know if there was an adjustment through the actual budget screen. The regular time came in at we loaded 719,000, and with benefits, that came in at 893,000.
And that is in the 15,600,000 number that we just put in. So it seems to me that there is something on the operating side, and Chief Shai's obviously going to go get it, but that operations line seems to be too high to me.
Yeah.
So what is, what is the 3% of the 1.2 million, 60,000? Is that something to say that?
36,000.
36,000.
So that should be just under 1.3.
So I guess my question is the operation is included in that, the stuff that we were going to do that was a carryover from last year, the locker room, the other things out of Fund 78?
Yes, but I don't think that's budgeted in here. I think that's on separate on Fund 78.
Then if operations is 3%, then that number should drop to the
About 1.26.
1.26.
And that's the difference.
That's the difference right there. You're right.
Yep.
What's,
So if those other things are not included in the operations, that $1.7 million of operations, and you add the 3% that we've asked for, what is that number?
So
1,225,000.
times 1 point,
plus 3%?
1.03.
excuse my, so 1.03, right? 12627.
So if you put 1262 into that 1738 line,
Right here.
yeah.
And then what's the difference? So we take the difference between the 500,000, right? Because that's the delta between the two.
Could you just do the 1.7 minus?
Right, but what I'm saying is if that 500,000 to reduce that, if we take the difference, that's like 400 grand, right?
Yeah.
475,000. That we could put right here.
And then our balance goes to 13,000.
And then that's the difference, and I don't know where the 18, what does that do, the bottom line of that, of the police budget?
It would drop it by that 475, right? So
Instead of the 18,989, you're,
475, 18,513. So it'd be that number right there.
I want to be very careful, Mr. Mayor, that we're not making a math there that defunds our police.
Agreed. And that's not what I'm trying to do.
that's what,
Yep.
I'm concerned, what is that 475? I mean, it's a number, but where's it coming from?
well, that's why I wonder if that 475 did not include the 200 for the locker rooms, all of that other stuff that we were looking at Fund
That
78.
wasn't in the general fund, though.
Because it said no tax money for that was money already approved, they just needed spending authority.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But that's the point is if we approve, if that spending authority got included into this budget
Right.
calculation,
I think we need to take a break till the chief gets back and then speculation till we see the numbers. Let's go at
Okay.
ease.
You have to know what's in the budget, what we're cutting.
Right.
And
Those are the numbers right there that, when you're talking about the CapEx, right?
500.
But they're not included in the numbers we're talking about
operating,
here
no.
now.
It's 555,000, then where does that amount come from?
It's just a math mistake.
Math error.
Well, let's hope so.
Okay, well, council, let's do what Council President Cheatham said. We'll go ahead and take a break for a few minutes until the chief can get back here, and then we'll
tell him to get it
go
right,
from there.
Eric. Remember,
It's after the, we got a thumbs up, Ken. Thank you for joining us after the break. We'll go ahead and get started again.
I have a question over here.
We have a couple questions.
Gene, did you get rid of that number that Heather gave us for the personnel line?
This 60,000?
No, the personnel line. It was the 15 million that Heather gave us.
I think he's on this slide.
Oh, you're on this slide right here?
Heather, do you have that number handy? I'm sorry. Because I thought,
Heather, I need you to come up to the table, please.
I just need to reconcile something with my notes.
What is this?
The corrected police
That's the
presentation.
most current budget from the system.
That's the presentation and the current budget.
Sorry, I had to scroll for a minute. I have a big department. The salary projection file for compensation and benefits, that includes overtime on call. $15,697,785.
So
Say that number again, 15,6.
15,697,785.
7, 8.
If there was anything keyed, like the overtime that wasn't presented that they were supposed to bring, I did not include that unless it was keyed separately.
thank you, Heather. The reason I asked, because that's what I had in my notes. According to this presentation that we were just given, that is the 18.9 number.
Correct.
The personnel, and maybe it's been updated. I know the personnel numbers change all the time, right? That happens during the process. That is $200,000 less than what we've got here and what we've got entered. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that is because we do need that money for that overtime line item. Yes.
That overtime is included in that 15,697.
No.
No, it's included in this.
It was included
In the
in
18.
the 15,899,275, which leads us to the bottom line of 18,988,843.
Can I have Heather come back up, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I misunderstanding something, or am I hearing two different answers? Because it sounds like you said the 15.6 includes overtime.
That is correct. However, so the salary projection file was built with 3.5 increase to their overtime compared to last year.
Okay.
On May 25th, I said departments would bring back any requests over that. I know police had a request.
Okay.
And I know that the chief and our CFO talked about that. Any increase that went in above the 3.5 was not keyed out of the projection file.
Perfect.
But
Okay.
it could be in the budget. I didn't key that.
That answers the question. Thank you. Okay.
And if you're looking for someone to blame on that error, that's 100% my fault.
But No problem. I really just wanted clarity. Like
That was my error. I did not add that as a separate slide. And then Gene and I have had several discussions since then, and that's why that number.
Thank you for getting us there.
So the right number is 15,899? That's the right
15,988.
number?
50 on personnel slide. Yes, sir. Yep, 15,988,275.
15,899
275.
is the correct number, including all of the overtime and stuff.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. I know it's a lot of work for those.
Okay,
so-
let's,
So sorry I had to scramble
council,
for that.
let's go back. I had Gene take, and that slide I had you just fix, Gene. There, all of those things have been added into the budget. If you take any of those things out, that will affect that $500,000 delta that we were looking at. All of those have been included into the budget.
In addition to the personnel costs.
This is the person.
This is personnel cost and things like that. They have all been included. So for example, the management assistant, there was a suggestion we pull the management assistant out. If you do that, pull that $79,000 out. Gene, if you'll go and do that, and you can watch that $490,000 number drop by $80,000.
I think it's
It's already
already
up
there.
there.
Yeah,
Already done.
did that.
So, except for it did not drop that 492.
So.
We
you
look at
want-
the
you want me
budget,
to-
the
no,
balance though.
The 475 from police, do you want me to back that out for now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you do that, there's the 488. You'll see that if I take that out, there's where we're at, and then I can add it back in. You'll see the reduction go to 488.
It doesn't change the L, it changes the other column, right?
No, it changes, yeah, it changes the T,
balance.
the balance. It shows in this column, you'll see this balance move. So again, if I change this, take that out, excuse me. If I go, take that out, it's 567 is the short.
Okay, that 567, pull that 150 out also. And then add the 79,000 for the management assistant.
Back in, okay. I just. Faster for me to do that.
So the number, if we leave those numbers where they are right there, the number is 338 that we're looking at.
And I think there's another 24.5 we can take out for the nonprofits.
That, we took that
That's
out,
in there.
that 24.5 is
sorry.
Yeah,
there.
that's out.
Okay, thank you.
What was that 50,000? I know you put it in parks, but it's not a parks thing. What was that?
planning.
Was it 54?
That's the Viva.
Oh, the Viva thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. So go back to that list that was added. And does that list include any of the equipment?
No, the equipment.
Is there.
The tax side is right here, excluding the ARPA, the cemetery, that $100 million.
So you got a building golf, $25,000. What is that? And building zoo, $25,000. What are those? Does,
Come and join us. I think the 25,000 on the golf building is just a 25,000 that's put aside every year to,
I believe that was already built into the budget,
it is. That's what
Okay.
we're saying, yeah.
yes. They've been doing that for the last several years, putting money, the 25,000 away in hopes of a clubhouse eventually.
But if I remember right, that $25,000 is coming from green fees and things like that. It's not coming from, it's not a tax ask.
I don't know the answer to that.
My understanding was that was from, $25,000 was from it's a capital improvement for the golf courses that is included in green fees. That's the dollar amount that they've been contributing annually for green fees and annual passes.
Question. So if that money's coming out every year, is it getting banked somewhere or is it getting spent every year?
It should be in the
Fund 78.
Fund 78.
Do we know if it is? And how much is there?
It's been going there. I haven't found a total list yet.
Where's golf? No, it's part of the 04.
Yep.
So there's the total recreation fund is down. It's a negative 103. So I have to get that breakout.
Capital improvement?
Well, no, it'd be the Fund 78.
Hard to tell. It might be included all in this infrastructure. Want me to go get that?
No. So there's rec, right? Down. Not Fund 78. No, this is the excess reserves. Yeah, you'll have to get that from Randy.
What are we looking for?
Looking for the Fund 78 balance.
breakdown.
So that's, we'll have to go get that.
So can we go back to personnel then, that asks?
On the, yes,
The
On the GIS analyst, right? They're asking for a full-time position.
The tax ask of that is $29,900.
What happens to the part-time money? That part-time job goes away if we hire a full-time job, is that right? Was that part of this calculation?
Addition to the part.
Yeah.
this is
Was
the
that,
add.
Yeah.
This is the add-on, right?
In lieu of, yeah.
okay.
Can we have Jeff, man, come up real quick?
Jeff,
Good morning, Jeff Mansfield, Public Works Director.
Two questions for you. Number one, the GIS variable funding, that was the funding that you requested, or that Ryan requested in the case that the full-time analyst position was not included. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So that 11,000 should not be in the budget, assuming we do approve the GIS analyst position.
So my understanding is that the GIS department is split 2/3 paid for by enterprise fund, 1/3 paid by interdepartmental or the general fund.
Okay?
So I think the breakdown that you're seeing there is the split for the additional cost. Is that what
the
we're seeing there?
29,000 is the split. That's the third. What the question is, the variable funding, the $11,000 funding, that one, is that an either or? If we funded the $29,000 piece from the tax ask, there's no need for that $11,000 one.
So if you take the 29 and the 11, does that come up to 34,000?
No, it's gonna be more than that. It's gonna be 40-something.
41.
Yeah, it's 41.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
The
Is, correct. If the full-time position is funded, then we do not need the variable hour funding.
So we should be able to take out 11,000 out of the budget?
That's what I'm hearing.
it would take either 11,000 or
Huh?
30,000.
29.
Either one of
One
the
or
two.
the other.
Okay.
Keep in mind the full-time position, like I say, only a third of that comes out of the general fund. And so,
Yeah, that third is the $30,000.
Right. The second question that I wanted to ask, when Ryan presented for GIS, he said that he believed he could see a reduction somewhat in his operations line with a second full-time employee to reduce for consultant fees. Was that included in the budget build?
it was not, but what he's been able to establish is he could come up with between $5,000 and $10,000. Again, keep in mind, only a third of that will impact the general fund.
Okay.
Not having that ability to hire consultants in the future could be an impact or a detriment to that department. So I just did the calculations, and the $29,959 is one third of what the FTE cost is, and so that is the impact to the general fund. Yeah, or the interfund, I should say.
I think we get rid of that 11,000.
We were told, so it's 30,000 impacting the general fund. We were told about the numerous benefits that GIS service offers to all the departments. And that included fire, police, planning, all those that are inside the general fund. If that GIS specialist is so critical to them, would they be willing to decrease operating expenses so if it's 30,000 to the general fund, would all the departments who say they would use a GIS specialist be willing to share the brunt of an extra 30,000?
I don't think that it's being utilized that way at this point.
Okay.
And so I don't think that it's included in their budget right now. They're operating, and so I don't know that they know what that dollar would look like. I know I see where you're going with
Right.
it, but I don't know if there's a quantifiable number that we could come to that would that it would work. If that makes any sense.
And the other caveat to that is you're just taking from one general fund to give to a different general fund, and
Right.
and in the future we're going to be tracking kind of those hours and how much benefit each department gets, and then we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I
in the
think you're a
future.
year out from doing what you're
Okay.
thinking.
That's.
Linda?
I was wondering if we could bring Heather up. I think we had a conversation, and in the benefits, maybe the projection, there could be a little bit of savings there. Could we hear about that?
Thanks, Jeff.
Heather Buchanan, Human Resources Director for the fourth time. So the salary projection file, which Jean loads into the budget, is a snapshot of time in April. We've filled 7 positions in tax funds that have a different benefit level than the person who exited or what we planned. So we could save about 50,000, between 50 and 60,000 in the general fund by correcting those benefit levels. All of the new positions are also budgeted at family, but I can't change those because some departments can't absorb that. But I could correct those positions
The ones that you
if
have.
interested.
So you could take.
There's 2 from
Take
parks,
50.
1 from police, 1
Yeah.
from animal.
Okay, let's grab 50 there. All right, so 100.
Well, it includes
Yeah.
the Viva,
Right.
right?
Viva and 50 of that.
Benefits, right?
So that reduces that number to what?
We're now 200 and something.
276. Brent? Thank you, Heather. You'll be back, I'm sure.
So can we go back again to the
Wait, just a minute,
personnel?
we have a question
Oh,
from
sorry.
Brent, and then we'll go back into the personnel.
So I just want to make sure I understand the numbers. So we, in the 42,590 total general fund expenditures, that includes the 3.5% plus step increases for the existing employees, is that right?
Yes.
And it also includes a 3% operational increase across the board to all the departments, is that correct? And then it also includes the items that were on that previous spreadsheet you had.
On this, right
That,
there.
that one right there.
Yes.
Is that it? I mean, is that how, those three classes of numbers, how we get to the 42,590?
Yes, plus this little slide of the CapEx less the $1 million that's been approved by ARPA. So this slide, right, the six, so there's
Three
six.
things on that CapEx slide?
Yeah.
So there's 608, right?
Okay,
This total right here.
right.
And then on this slide, there's less that million, so you're looking at 100 grand, right? Basically, 103 on that slide. Because again, this, the way I have this set up, I can't back out that million right now,
Right.
and that's it. Where would you like me to go?
Okay, no, that answers my question. Thank you.
So, Councilmember Marchand wanted to go back to the slide that you were just at,
The,
the personnel, that one.
One of my questions is excavator savings cost us 12,000. What's the savings there? Is that a lease that we're saving money on? I don't know why it says, unless I'm reading it wrong, excavator
the
savings,
Savings at capital.
$12,533.
that,
Yeah.
Yes.
Into capital
That's saving for an
or an
excavator.
excavator.
That's a cemetery excavator they're saving for.
And
Yes.
Butler Parks and Recreation
Oh, are
Director,
they're
we're
putting it into a fund?
Fund,
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Putting
all
it
right,
away to
okay.
buy in
Sorry.
the future. Sure.
Thanks, Sam.
And before you go away real quick, how much is that excavator?
I don't have a total. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all right. Sorry.
Council, as much as
About
I,
100, Tom's
as
telling
much
me.
as I'm gonna get beat up for this, probably I'd pull that. I would take it.
Well, the other thing that I would be interested in, just if the cemeteries would consider, if they're interested in using 100, we set aside $1 million for roads in the cemetery. If they said we would use 900,000 for roads and 100 for the excavator, I'd rather look at that.
I think you're looking at two different
That's ARPA. Yeah, that's
pieces and stuff. And so I would focus on this. And cemetery is out of balance $15,000, and this corrects most of that $15,000 of them being out of balance. So I would take that and balance that cemetery budget.
if I can, Mayor, I believe that you've already,
Yep,
We already did.
already did.
maybe I didn't.
I
So if
don't
took
think
the
we did. I
12
suggested it, but nobody moved on it, and so,
Yeah, but he did it when you said it.
did he?
I don't,
Why is it still up there then, if you did it when I said it?
I thought it was done.
no, I didn't,
Maybe not.
I actually said I would take the whole 15,280 and have them figure it out, and they would lose that excavator as well.
And the library.
I still
And the
would prefer
library,
the
I would take
15. I'd still prefer the 15,280.
so you want me to take the 15,280 out?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we did that.
I probably, you probably told me to, and I just overlooked it.
No, it's okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, he didn't.
Okay, yes. I'm sorry, Scott. We've got Brent and then Scott, and then I don't know who else after that. Go ahead.
Could you keep scrolling on the,
Down or up?
well, down on the spreadsheet? Down to
Thanks,
the air, thank you, the airport line item there,
Thank you.
where it has the 1,043,000. Could you explain that number to us? Because
This million?
that meant right there, uh-huh.
Alan, you want to come up here? What that $1 million is, I might be able to explain it, Alan can explain it a lot better, is we're burning $1 million of reserves. is what our plan is that, if I remember right, Alan, that's the revenue guarantee that we plan to burn. Is that right?
I believe that is correct. I'm a little confused by that myself, to be really honest with you.
So they've got the reserves, they've got ARPA money that they're going to be working on, or CARES Act money.
CARES Act money.
Is what they're going to be working on, and we will be spending that $1 million as the revenues guarantees, and so it's burning
The reserves.
their reserves.
Our
That's
reserves.
not actually a tax ask.
Right.
That's just shows that we're budgeting $1 million more because we're gonna burn the reserves that they already have, their savings that they already have.
But it's actually driving the shortage, isn't it?
I don't believe so, because where we took that 15,280, if you go back up to the line, we're still at 270 something. Go all the way up. 276. So pulling that $15,000 out of cemetery, all that did was balance cemetery's budget.
Their line item, because they're a separate tax.
I understand.
Yeah.
It didn't affect our
It didn't
overall
affect the thing,
shortfall.
the shortfall. We just made them balance.
So we balanced
And-
cemetery and library?
Yes. And the airport, we plan on using excess reserves or the reserves. And so that will show $1 million more, but we have the money in the bank. It's not going to affect the tax ask. Does that make sense?
So the actual tax, the overage, the ask that we have, is now what number, bottom line? The
276. 276, 761.
Okay, so this does not impact
Yeah,
that.
will not impact that. What will impact it, if you'll go to that personnel ask, thank you, Alan. Anything on this list right here will impact that tax ask. So if you take that $12,000 excavator, it should reduce to 276 tax ask.
It reduced it to the 276, didn't it?
No.
That was part of the 15 though, right?
Right.
I don't know if it was part of the 15 or not.
I think if we took that 15 out though, that's just gonna hit the cemetery line. It's not gonna hit the general fund.
Okay.
So when we look at this, like overtime, scheduled for fire, unscheduled, is this added money
This is,
to last year's?
yes. So if you want fire to operate the way they were operating still now and working it, that $25,000 in scheduled overtime, we know is going to happen. We've just never budgeted for it. And they've always come out in the red in their overtime, and this was a fix for that. If the council's okay with them running in the red again and you pull that out, they will run in the red in their scheduled overtime next year.
But working out of class is something that was added also, right? That's something that I thought he said they hadn't done before.
Come on up here, chief.
Mayor and Council, Chief Roger Scheid. So I'm looking at this here, and I see 131,988.55 and 9,677.29 cents at the bottom on lines 33 and 34 on that Excel spreadsheet. Is everybody with me on that?
No.
Okay. I don't need that because those are that added overtime was added into that 18,988. So you can take that out.
So pull those.
I knew
two out.
that. That's why I brought it up.
So
meant to say
I saw you.
police. No.
I saw you thinking about it. So so those numbers can be taken out because that is factored into that
That's part of that
18,988.
18,988.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we'll credit Council Marchand.
So, no, we're not going to credit Marchand for anything there. You kidding me? Chief Scheid gets the credit for that one.
Well, I'm glad he caught that.
Okay.
That was,
No, I'm glad he caught that
Didn't
too.
look there.
yeah, that's
Awesome.
great.
So where are we at now?
130
Give me 1 second, sorry.
something.
Come on.
Good catch, Chief Shy. Thank you.
Did you hurt yourself?
Progress.
Just for the record,
Yeah,
I fully credit you.
135.
I'm more impressed that he walked from there without the crutches back to the thing. So we're at 135. Do you want to volunteer something up, Chief?
No, I didn't know if he still had a question. Okay.
No, that's just was new, and I understand why you've asked for it, so that's what I'm looking at.
But yeah, we're just trying to straighten the books out so that we're not running in the red in those
So did we take any, we didn't take any of the branding money yet, correct?
No.
So can we line out of the things that we've got, that we've taken right now? Those bottom two,
I'll just highlight them, is that all right?
yeah, highlight them so we know what we've pulled out. Did we pull out that 11,394 for the
funding.
variable GIS
Line 20.
11,
line? Yeah. Council, I would take the 12,000 from the excavator.
Didn't we
I know
include
it's a
that in the
savings.
15?
I think that's the 15.
Then that should be highlighted here, right?
In their line item, that's kind of how we got that.
Because I'm going to keep going back to that probably if I see that up there. Thank you.
What does CRC stand for again?
Community Rec Center.
Thank you.
So on the airport operations, what was the ask there for the,
Alan, come on up here. And Ann, why don't you come up here and take a seat next to the chief, if you would.
Real quick, the airport operations, though, isn't going to affect the general fund, correct?
No, it's a separate line.
Okay, so that 130 number wouldn't move even if we did move this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sit down there. They have a question.
Whatever's not going to affect the general fund, can we just highlight that too? For clarity's sake?
Maybe in another color?
So that way
Highlight
we
it in a
know.
different color so we know that it's there, but
Will affect the general fund.
How about green?
Green? Okay, green's fine.
well, I guess it doesn't matter then.
so you don't have a question for Alan
Not
anymore?
if it does,
It doesn't
yeah, not if it's not gonna help us, no.
Okay, Ann, would you speak to the CRC seasonal employee, that line?
There's two lines in Parks and Rec, which is line 9 for the Community Rec Center and line 27 for outdoor recreation. We're in desperate need of more money for staffing. Bottom line, we're offsetting to pay other expenses in those lines. We're just coming up short. So that's why we had the ask this year. We're trying to correct some old bad habits in essence.
So kind of the same thing that we're doing with the scheduled overtime and stuff like that. We're just trying to straighten that out. Did that answer your question on those? Thank you.
I would say we do something with the branding, either all of it or half of it. Just do it again in a year, or look at it again in a year. I don't think that's something that,
It's needed.
I personally think it's needed.
I do too.
the whole 100?
I
All
think,
that's needed.
I think Rick is right. It's going to be a lot more than that. And you just pull it out now, you're just moving the branding back 3 to 5 more years.
Well, it'll be a multi-year project.
Yeah.
That all that needs to be done, we can't get done in 1 year, even if we had the money.
But if we cut it in half, I don't think we can really
won't
accomplish
even
much
get
of
us
anything.
started.
I think we can. I think we
I
can
don't.
move forward with developing a brand, and that's as far as it will go. You won't see any implementation.
Well, I think you're looking at a consultant for that. So Ann,
Hi. Ann Nichols, Administrative Services Manager. Yes, the first 100,000 that we have put into the budget is the thought process is for hiring the consultant. I don't know that you're going to get a consultant on board to do all of the stakeholder meetings, all of the, potential presentations for $50,000. Last time when we tried this and we went nationwide with our RFP, we received all the way from Florida, from the East Coast, from the West Coast. There were a lot of consulting companies interested in doing this. Locally, most of them said they did not have the capability to do a big branding project like we're looking at. So you're looking at a national company, and that's going to cost, I think, a little bit more than $50,000 if you're truly interested in doing that. If we have any savings from the $100,000, of course, that will be put back into the general fund reserves, and we can pull that back out for continuing project for the rest of what we need it for the wayfinding, for the letterhead, for anything else.
What are the benefits? What are the benefits to rebranding?
All those are, you can't count the number of benefits to us rebranding the city. Number one,
Economic development.
economic development, tourism, I mean, you name it.
Recruiting, hiring.
Community
then
buy-in,
not all-
consolidated logo.
And then all of the businesses and everybody who lives within the city benefits from the rebranding of the city.
I only included it in there because it was your top short-term goal that you put together in November, so it's totally up to the council how you want to proceed with that.
Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I'm wondering if we could go back to our estimates on revenue and look if there are ways we can adjust. We went very conservative on those. I feel strongly about the rebranding, and I think 50,000 isn't enough to even hire somebody, so I'd like to look at this.
Okay, what are your thoughts?
And can you make it just a little bigger?
Make it bigger so we can
I'm
see.
trying.
Thank you.
We're not 15 anymore.
It can really help my eyes too.
Well, you might be 15.
I got fresh eyes, man.
I'm 150, so bear with
Here
me.
you go.
Where would you like to start at? Top?
Started
We're-
liquor tax.
We hit the,
Look at the new construction. That's an estimate. I think we're low there, but
Would it be reasonable to take new construction to 400,000?
I think it's
That's
as good of a guess as 353.
That's a very specific number.
I got that from Christie at County, so,
Oh,
but you give me the direction.
I say we take it to 400,000.
If you don't mind, I was just
Annexation
going to flip
seems low
back
also.
so you could see that. So that's 88.
That's 88, if you did that.
That annexation seems a little low.
I think I'd leave the
yeah.
annexation because it's a guess. It probably is low, but I think
I think
would
that's a
leave
good
that.
guess where it's at.
I do too. Sales tax, I personally think it could go up.
Yeah.
A little bit, but I don't know how much. That was an AIC projection.
7,100?
If we all run to the liquor store now, we can raise that one.
Yeah, that liquor tax could probably go up too. I think the sales tax could go up. I mean, I want to look at my legislator down there and see what his.
The governor's projections are dead on what's already on the book.
Are they?
What's actually happening in collections now.
Is that sales tax, that number, the liquor tax, is that the same as what the governor has?
It's peaked and it's leveling off or declining just slightly. So I think our share, that's a pretty good number.
Okay, So look at electric franchise fee. We all know our electric bill's gone up. Does that change that?
Yeah, I think it will, and I think it'll change it dramatically.
So
You're projecting how much?
522?
522, that's probably low. What we're seeing, residentials are going up 8%, big users like WPC and water are going up 20 to 25%.
If you took that to 600,
Something.
550, it is a
Maybe
lot.
550.
550?
Okay.
I'd be comfortable with
I think that
that.
would be reasonable.
Natural gas, what is, that's,
Down.
it's going down?
Going down.
So leave that alone, don't change that.
Cable's going down.
Cable, I think, is going down, although I will tell you, cable, the Sparklight just dropped off a $30,000 check for the franchise fees the other day. That was nice of them.
That was nice.
Oh, it was. It was good for them to bring that in, so.
Gene, where are we at?
I'm sorry.
On the other page, where are we at?
Well, you gotta give me another $80,000 so I can get my admin back. 60.
60? Okay. Can we go back? Thanks.
We may be able to get the interest up, because I think our average balance is probably about 70 mil. And so probably squeak another 100 grand out of that.
Would you be comfortable putting 100 grand into that?
What about 60?
No, so if we, again, the average balance is about 70 mil, right? So if we did at 4%, that's 2.8 mil. And so at 2.5, I'd be comfortable. That gives me some pretty good cushion.
I agree with that.
So do it. Yeah,
So what happens if we guess high on all of these?
then we cut the budget. Then the council tells the mayor to sit down with the department heads and cut the budget.
Or we dip into reserves.
Or we dip into reserves. That's one of the reasons you have reserves.
The other thing I'd like to add to that as well, though, that is also dependent on salary projections where new positions all fill in at the full benefit range, which, I mean, we obviously can't just budget a shortfall, but there is a very high possibility in my experience on council, and I think Rick and Linda can speak to it even more, that those numbers usually do come in low because they don't use the full benefits. I mean, that is budgeted at the max capacity they could take, which often isn't the case.
I've always liked Heather's philosophy. We budget every position at its current level and filled.
Yep.
And it usually comes in for less.
So even if that does come in a little bit less
Richard, come here.
with your concern,
Please, if you would please come up here.
We're conservative.
We'll go back to the other one.
Building permits?
Richard, you recommended 919 for building permits, down from 967.
It's hard to dictate here in the last couple of
Well,
weeks.
we're up here trying to do it, and now you're involved in it.
I will tell you that we are seeing a rapid increase in our applications that we just received since we've done our budget presentation. So.
Are you comfortable moving that back up to the 970 mark?
So Richard,
Or from actual 22,
Yes.
940.
Or what did we budget? What's the actual right now? 940 was actual 22.
20. So 22 actuals and 940. You're asking where we're at year to date on
I don't know
23?
if you can get those numbers. It's not a big deal to me if you can't. I'm comfortable at 950 anyway.
Yeah, if we
Well,
get
wouldn't
the apartments that we're,
960 be enough?
960 would
I mean,
put
that,
us there.
enough as far as the number we need.
we're already over.
Oh, that's right, we're in the positive now.
if we get the apartments that we're been talking about coming, the construction of the new soccer courts up at the MEC that they've already hit social media talking about, I think we'll be able to get there.
What are you comfortable, 950, 960, 970? 800,
I think 960,
960?
and it's shot in the dark. We'll find out at the end of the year, but
Welcome to our world.
yeah.
Okay, what does that do to us,
What
Gene?
if we said 950?
Yeah.
Just to be safer.
950? Getting cold feet, are you?
Rick,
950.
He's
I
making
heard,
me
I heard
nervous.
Rick jump on that too, yeah, so 950. I think we're gonna be fine at 950, but,
I think chances are we'll go.
so we're
over
at
that.
69 over now.
I think we'll see as big a year as we did.
Council, is there anything else you want to do with that?
Not necessarily with that. I don't know what reserves amount look like, but I think, as Brent pointed out, I mean, if there's no way to do it, then, and the council is not interested, then that's fine. But that $150,000 for the open space plan is access to grant money. And when I have someone who gets up here and says, this is the key to getting additional money, that becomes a priority to me. So if I don't know if our reserves are such that we could plan on using that for reserves for that, but I would be interested in doing so.
Currently, as of today, right, in column Q, that's the excess reserves right there, 7 mil, just so you know.
Okay.
I agree with Josh completely. I think that plan is extremely important, and it means more money. And we've heard that from a lot of people. I've heard that even not just here, but in the community, how important that is for different agencies and organizations that would support us. But I would like to see that maybe come out of the excess reserves.
So I have a question here, because I am thinking back to President Cheatham's comment earlier, but I need some clarification before I really run my mouth for a minute. Excess fund reserves, that's excess, that's over and above
For the
what the
25.
policy calls for.
Yes.
So can we go back to the revenue? And we've planned on 323, 417, that 1% foregone that President Cheatham is not comfortable with. I don't necessarily agree with him or not, but if we decided to straighten that out, clear that out so that there's not any foregone that we're taking. And then go back to the other slide do you remember that number?
Yeah, I can pull that.
Okay.
323, 417.
And so now we're 253 upside down again, plus 150 that they're talking about for the thing, which is going to be about $400,000. My recommendation, council, would be burn the $400,000 out of that excess reserve.
Agreed.
I agree.
I have a clarification question before.
Okay?
If we do that, so our budget limits, our tax limits in the future are based on previous budget numbers. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Not including foregone.
Not,
foregone's been pulled out of that.
Foregone doesn't count.
So when we calculate that 3% next year, if we take foregone, does that 3% number that is not included?
And would you come up here and speak to that, because I'm not.
Because this is an important clarification
Yeah.
for me.
And Nichols, Administrative Services Manager. So the way that the foregone works with the budget is cities, counties are allowed to take 1% and add it to your O&M. That 1% will add to your base for future years. The 3% that you're also allowed to take for one-time capital expenditures will not.
So I then would be in favor of still taking the foregone to add to that base O&M because
The 1%.
the 1%, the 1% I would be to add to the base level for future years, because I believe the reason that we run and even have to look at foregone year over year is because when we choose to take less than 3%, it's not just about that year, it's about every year moving forward. And so I think because we've talked about, the foregone is not going to be around forever. The governor's office talks about taking it, legislature talks about taking it. I am in favor of still taking that 1% to add to the base for future years.
It's not free money. What you're asking for is a 1% tax increase.
I understand that. And I know that it's not free money, but it's also the $300,000 that we're looking at. I don't see a lot of one-time spends that we're looking at. We're looking at ongoing expenses that we're approving today. And if we're going to use ongoing expenses and then choose not to increase the base to the point that we can tax that in the future, then we're making a mistake in adding to those ongoing expenses. If we're going to add a bunch of positions, those need to be funded next year too. And we're going to have to include that in the tax calculation. And I think to choose to just use reserves, it's not just about covering the one times this year, but it's about meaning what does 3% look like next year as well? And the ability to cover those ongoing expenses. And if we want to do then the 3.5% increase to the pay scale, and we want to do the new positions that have been approved and ongoing expenses that come, I think that we would be in a financial bind in future years if we choose not to also take the 1%.
I would 100% agree with that statement.
And I understand that that's not free money, but that's the nature of what and the limitations of the 3% moving forward. I worry that every time that base stays lower and we add to ongoing expenses, that we are going to reach a point where we cannot increase, that our 3% will not even cover basic O&M.
Okay, Scott?
I agree with what Josh is saying, but I guess part of it is what I've been saying since day one is we don't put any money away. We spend money. We have to find a way to pay for the things that we're going after. We continue to get grants that cost us money, whether it's, a match and we start a new project that we now can't maintain, or we get another building that we can't maintain. We haven't maintained the buildings we have. We have to find a way to do that. And part of that is taking the money. But you can't take that money and spend it on something else. We have to get square. And I just feel like we haven't moved in that position to go, look, here's where we're at. We're in a decent place. Let's ride this thing out a little bit before we add stuff that maybe we don't actually need. I know we're under contract for some things that we're going to have to take care of. I think we have to go actually to department heads and say, you got a 3% increase. That doesn't mean you have to spend that 3%. If you have money left over, help us versus spend it on maybe some things that you don't need, right? We look at personnel costs. We actually save money there, but we spend it also because we have department heads that come and say, I have this money in personnel savings, and instead of that coming back in, we buy something else with it. I also understand that there are things that come along during the year that you didn't budget for that's the buy of the century, and it's good for the city to do that. That's where I think that we use that. Fiscally, I just think we need to.
But with this budget, chief or council member, once a chief, always a chief,
I know.
right?
I got you.
But council member, with this budget, we have built in a savings. We have built that in to Fund 70.
I agree, but I'm saying, I think really when you look at these budgets, department heads are the ones that have to look at it and go, halfway through the year, maybe I have this money left over versus spending it coming back. But everybody gets nervous about it going back into the general fund.
Well, and they do that. That's how we've built that, and that money is so that we could do these things if we need it. So that's how we ended up with that excess, is because departments have been extremely fiscally responsible on this, and they've been very, very conscientious on it, and that's where they've been able to bring it back. And that's also how we've done the things in Fund 78, because when they have a project, they've budgeted for that and put that into Fund 78 for it. Police has $500,000 worth of stuff that they've saved over the years Some of that's been personnel savings, some of that's been other savings because they've worked hard to make sure that they don't overspend and that they do come in so that they can do those projects. And so we've been doing that to the point of fixing everything. No, you're right. We haven't been.
Well, that falls on us, and I guess that's what I'm saying. As a council, sooner or later, you got to look at it and go, we gotta slow down, maybe.
I think I had Linda and then Rick, and then, did you have something? Okay, Linda, then Rick.
Well, I have a couple of different things, but first I wanted to respond, and I agree with the mayor's response to Councilmember Marchand's comments, and I would just add to that. I mean, not only I think our department heads are being incredibly fiscally responsible, and I would also say I don't see, in my experience on the council, that we're like just starting new projects that we don't need, that we're spending money that we don't need. It's really trying to catch up on things that we absolutely need and being as responsible and as sort of tight as we can with money. We've put some things off. I absolutely don't see any unnecessary spending. I mean, you see when we look at this list of things, how difficult it is to come up with anything that we would cut because it's all necessary. So I'm just not seeing spending on things that we don't need, even equipment, projects, all of it is ongoing stuff. The grant money is, as you say, not free money. It costs us in match or things like that, but it's all for ongoing projects that are needed. So I think that that match money is money well spent. It means more money coming in that is not coming from taxpayers. So I'm just not seeing the unnecessary spending that I guess I'm hearing you suggest. As far as the foregone, I do agree with Josh. I think that it puts us in a difficult position going forward. And we're going to get to the point, we do need to budget more to maintain things and to take care of things that we have. And if we put that off and don't use the foregone, I see that we're in a difficult position going forward. I know it's not free money, but I think it is responsible budgeting. The foregone exists for a reason. I don't think it's irresponsible to use it. I think it's actually responsible when you're looking to the future. So I would agree with Josh's position on that. But I think our department heads and the council on this budget, we have been incredibly responsible. I can't think of another word, but just, doing what we need to do. And I don't see excess. I don't see unnecessary projects. I don't see just sort of, oh, we've got money, let's do this now. I think it's all needed. And a lot of it is it's been needed for a while. This is catching up on getting some things done.
Okay, Rick and then Brent.
Well,
Let's go.
I'm still going to talk against taking the foregone. You're asking citizens to pay an extra $323,000 above the 3%, when we're setting on $7 million in reserves in excess of our required 25% reserve the department's maintained. I think we should hold off on that if there are projects that we want to accomplish, like the $150,000 for planning and development and those other projects. Then I think we need to take a look in October, November, at the end of this fiscal year, at what those projects are and how we could use those reserve funds to fill those holes that Scott's talking about. We can use money that the city already has. We've already asked taxpayers for without increasing their debt load in this next year. The forecast for '24 is for a moderate recession across Idaho. The state is taking a budget cut next year because they don't expect things to go as well as what they did in the past. And I don't think we should be asking our citizens for an extra $300,000 when we're setting on $7 million that we're not doing anything with right now. And we can fund a lot of projects, whether we need match for the planning stuff, whether Tom needs extra money to snowplow again next year, or whatever might come up. We've got $7 million sitting in a savings account that we're not using. And I don't think that's responsible. I think we need to burn those excess, those are excess reserves, not regular reserves, they're excess, over and above what the city needs to operate. And I think we need to use that money to accomplish some of these tasks that Scott's been talking about.
Brent?
Yeah, I'm wondering if somebody could explain to me a little more on how using the reserves instead of the foregone really hurts us going forward. Just that we have a lower budget that we then can increase by 3% next year? And could somebody explain this to me, how it hurts us?
So that's exactly right. If the responsible, see, the legislature, as much as it pains me to say, the legislature, there was some value and some foresight in them capping your tax ask at 3%.
Right.
When they capped that at 3% years ago, they said if you don't take that 3%, you can put it in a thing called foregone for taxing authority in the future, over and above the 3%. Well, a lot of cities decided not to grow the 3% and save that foregone. And Pocatello was one of them. We decided for years not to take that 3% because it's a hard sell to the citizens. It's the responsible thing to do, but it's easier to say, look, we're just going to cut and we're not going to increase. And the reason we have been behind, that Scott talks about all the time, is we haven't taken that 3%. So we're talking about taking that 3%. Right. There's $4 million of foregone that we have not taken. If you take 1% of that, next year you can add that 1% to the 3% we've taken this year for future taxing authority, for future growth. There's also wisdom in that, in being able to collect that. If we were to take 3% of that foregone, we would not be able to count all three. We would only be able to count 1%. And so there is wisdom in both sides of this argument. There's a lot of wisdom in looking at what we can do with it. We haven't taken for years and years and years. We did not take the 3%. In fact, there was a couple years we cut taxes dramatically, and then we've had to come back and build it back up because that was the wrong thing to do. It put us in a bad position. And in the Chief Shai's statement, that's 100% on me, because back in the day I was really focused at that, and it hurt the city more than it really helped the city. And so there's value in that 3%. And so we're not talking about not taking 3%. Right. We're talking about 1% of the foregone. And there's value in taking it because it gives you the ability to increase that 3% next year. Right. And every year after that. But there's also value in what Council President Cheatham's saying in we've got excess reserves. And before we start talking about the foregone, we should probably use that. And so I don't know if that answered your question, but that was it. And I've got Linda, but after Scott.
That's a good explanation.
So really, all I want to do is clarify something. I'm not saying, and never have I said, that our department heads don't do a great job with the budget. And I've talked to every one of them, well, not every one of them, I've talked to a lot of them about the budget. Part of the budget process is, once this is done, it goes to a department head and we don't really look at it again, right? As a council, stuff comes before us but day to day, you don't see that. So all I'm saying is I'm asking, and I think they do it anyway, I'm just bringing it up that, when that budget comes before you during the year, to always look at it hard. That's what I'm asking for. No different than maintaining what we already have and looking at the things that we're trying to do and how we get there. That's what I'm looking at. it's hard to move forward in a city, and you learn a lot quickly. Costs a lot of money, no matter how you look at it. But as a department head, I also know that during my years, sometimes things come up that I budgeted for that I don't need. I don't need to replace that always with something else. I just ask that they're doing it already. They save us money all the time. They come before us all the time, and they show us the money they saved. I ask for that across the board, just because in the long run, that helps us. Just like as a citizen, I would look at the council and say, do what you can to help me with my taxes, to help me with the city, and what you add and making us whole and maintenance free, which will never happen, but you want to get to that point. So not saying they're not doing their job. They do a terrific job. My push is that we do it every day. And that includes me, so.
Okay, Linda, and then Josh.
And I also want to clarify something, because philosophically, I agree with what Josh is talking about with foregone and the logic behind it. But to your point of there's value in both, I agree 100% that there's also value in using the excess reserves and bringing those down. I don't think that it is good practice to, and Jean and I have had this conversation, and I've had it with previous CFOs too. I don't believe in just letting that climb and climb and climb and climb. That money is in there for a reason, and I think we need to use it. That is being responsible as well. So I do think that there's value in both things. The question is, sort of what are we going to do with each? I guess that's where the decision comes in of whether we're going to, not take foregone and use all excess reserves, or whether we're going to do the 1% foregone but use some excess reserves. Maybe it's both of those things. But philosophically, I agree with both arguments that have been made. And I think we cannot let excess reserves just climb and climb and climb. That's not the purpose.
And so I got Josh and then Council President Cheatham again.
The other thing, an important consideration, is as we look at those reserves, some of those projects don't come without additional ongoing expenses. If you spend money, I look at that list of just the funds and departments. The animal shelter has been at capacity and is at capacity every day. We could add a whole new, additional wing to that building, land-wise, I think. But anyway, you could add to animal shelter and services that are offered, but that would require staffing, that requires ongoing basis to continue to do so. There's the maintenance side, that if you put in a new park or do a new project, you're going to need to add that as well. We've talked about, once we do the open space plan, that we need a trail manager and an open space manager. Those are ongoing costs that are going to be associated and are created from the projects that we spend those reserves in. So I would love to sit down and let's come up with a project list and start prioritizing, deciding how much to spend out of reserves on those projects that include open space plans and zoning. And there are plenty of projects that I'm sure every department head could come up with $7 million in plans today for each department, the projects that they want. And I am absolutely in favor of sitting down and talking about that and coming up with a project list. But I still think that I still think that we need the 1% foregone to ensure that we have the capacity in the future years to continue to run the ongoing expenses that will come associated with them.
Okay, I might just add, we do have that list.
Right, I know we do.
So
right.
let's not recreate.
Sorry, I'm not asking to recreate it, but if we want to start approving things to spend on.
Sure. Rick?
Well, to address the increased budget capacity of the future, if the foregone's $323,417, and we add that to the budget, next year it makes a difference in what we can levy by $10,000. It's not a significant amount of money. It won't make or break a budget. It will compound, but per year, that's not a significant amount of money of what we're talking.
Can I just add that, maybe I shouldn't, never mind. Right now is not a good time for me to add anything to this discussion. But no, I am going to, because it's a pet peeve of mine. We're building a budget, and we're looking at the 3%, and part of the value of that excess reserves is we're looking at 3%, but we don't know what those revenues really truly are, and we won't know because the state's timelines don't allow us to do that. We are in June, the Board of Equalization that will dictate what that 3% really looks like doesn't even start for another week.
Started Monday.
Oh, it just started then.
Started Monday.
So it just started and it will go through the month of July. We have to have our budget published the middle of July so that we can have the discussion, we can have the public hearing, have the discussion, have an ordinance prepared so we can get the numbers that we've decided that we feel comfortable with to the county in September. We don't even get to know what the BOEs or the Board of Equalization numbers come out to be until the end of September. So at the end of the day, we can be looking at this, and part of that $7 million helps us balance that budget that the county's in complete control of right now. And so that's something just to, maybe I'm saying this for the public. I mean, we're building a budget with the idea of 3%, and right now we have the foregone in it. That hasn't gone out yet. We're having that discussion, but we don't know what that 3% really looks like. And if we say, put this dollar amount with 3% and valuations go up, it may drop that 3% down to 1.5%, 2%. And that's typically what's happened. And so it's a difficult position that cities are in because the state legislature hasn't made an adjustment there, and the county has a difficult time. The assessor gives us numbers that she can speculate on, but ultimately it's the county commissioners.
You know, and I think you're exactly right, Mr. Mayor. You know, this was one of the topics at the AIC convention we attended last week, and one of the sessions I was in. This state uses budget-based taxation instead of the other way around, and we don't know, and the county doesn't know in their budget either. They don't know where they're going because they don't know what the final valuation is going to be, whether we'll top $5 billion this year for the city of Pocatello. We were close last year. We may hit it this year. But every year since I've been on council, we take an ask, a potential increase, and we finally get the new construction number after fighting with them over that. We finally get the new assessments. We finally get the Board of Equalization's numbers for those that are going to be excluded from the tax base. And it's way more than what we figured. So we may ask for 3 and end up with 2. Right. But we still get the budget money that we asked for. We just don't know what that's going to be. And I know I talked to one of the commissioners Monday, and they only have about 70 appeals this year in taxation. It's much lower than what it's been in the past, but it's potentially some big stuff. So we'll see where it goes, but we don't know. And this was talked about at AIC, and it's being talked about at the legislative level about trying to change some of these days and fix this because we don't know where we're at. And it's a real problem. But I will very much, I'd bet $100 right now that if we ask for 3%, we won't get it. We're going to end up at 2 point something.
We'll end up with 2,
Yeah.
right around there. I think that's the case. Okay. And so I think that's an important thing for the public to understand, that 3% actually ends up dropping. It has every year
time.
we ask for it because we don't know what it is. And so that's why we ask for it. And that has also hurt in the past when we haven't wanted to increase that ask and values have come in a little bit higher. It's also dropped that number for us, and that's hurt us. And so.
But I'm really concerned about our excess reserves. Senator Guthrie had a bill 2 years ago that would have taken those away and really cut into local budgets. There's one taxing authority in the state that has 6 years worth of budget money in their reserve column. Yeah.
40
And that
million,
is.
$40 million.
The Port of Lewiston has 600% in reserves. And I think we need to spend that down to something reasonable, where we already have a 25% reserve, and this is in excess of that. And I think that's where we need to look at this extra money that we need to fund what we want to do in our city and to help catch up the kind of project that Councilman Marchand's been talking about.
So, with all that, sorry I chased a rabbit down a hole for a minute. What do you want to do, council?
Gene, will you go back to the reserve or to the revenue?
The revenue? That foregone was in.
Right here.
It is out now. If you put the foregone back in, you're back at 150. Well, you're less than that.
323, 417.
I'm sorry?
323.
417.
You guys are too fast. 323, 417.
That's 1% of the foregone. Yes, Linda.
I would like to propose adding one thing back in. It's a small thing, and I think we've got our numbers looking good here, and I think we can afford to do this, but I would like to add back, I think it was 24.5 for the nonprofits. I know they all need it. I'm thinking about the free clinic in particular, just everything they do in our community. That is a small amount, and I think we can afford to add that back in.
I could get behind that. Looking at the 7 million, could that possibly come from the excess reserves instead of adding it to the budget?
I think that if you do that, then yeah, that would be my recommendation. Rather than cut something else out, I would recommend taking it from those excess reserves if the council is interested in that.
What,
I'm okay either way, but we don't have to cut something, do we? Because aren't we,
You're 80,000
That's
in the
what the
hole right
we're,
now.
Well, I think we were still in the hole, were we not?
Well, because of
Back out
the open space plan.
Back that 150 out again, please.
yeah, that I'd like to see come out of excess reserves.
Yeah.
Well, I've got Scott that wanted to say something else,
You
and
were over.
was Rick, were you after Scott, Rick? And I'm not sure if Linda's done yet.
And my only point was, I mean, I want to add it back in. I'm okay either way, but I don't think, the 150 I would like to see come out of excess reserves. I think the 24.5, we're over, so we can handle that in the budget. But if we want to have it out of excess reserves, I'm not, either way.
Okay,
I just want it back in.
Scott,
I guess I
did you
got
have something?
two things. Number one, what would be a good excess reserve number to have? 4,000, 3,000, or 3 million, 4 million?
If I can, remember that fluctuates.
Right.
So I don't think I would go below 3 million because you're going to have those swings where, it would dip below our required reserve and above, just when we have large things come through. So I certainly wouldn't go below, that 3.5.
I mean, I understand the reserve, but it's also good business, right? Have some money in your pocket every once in a while. When I look at the 24,000, adding it, I really don't have a problem with it. The 4,500 into one neighborhood, to me, is a tough sell. I think it's a good thing that they do that, but I think we have other neighborhoods, and I don't know how you sell that, and is that number going to get bigger every year when every neighborhood finds out, hey, this is going on, there's money. There used to be a time, and I can't even, it was like National Night Out, right, for police, that every neighborhood did a thing in the summer. This is different than that. This is Christmas, but I struggle with that one. That $4,500 I struggle with going, yeah, I can give that to one neighborhood, and then it doesn't benefit everybody, so it makes it tough. It makes it a tough sell for me.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay,
could I respond to that?
Sure.
sure.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead and respond to that, and then we're going to Rick.
Because I did make the proposal back, and we were going to talk about that in tax solution. I agree. I don't really want to give money to one neighborhood and not the others. But I talked about how we have 6 neighborhoods that have organizations, and that we give, I had proposed 5,000. I would even be good with 3,000, but that we give those organized neighborhoods a set amount to do similar things to what the college neighborhood has done. And then we could take that 4,500 out of the 24,500. That could become 20,000, and then we have another amount where we give the 6 neighborhoods an amount, an equal amount. And that would hopefully encourage other neighborhoods in the future to also get organized and have activities and have active associations. So I agree with you. I don't want to just give one neighborhood money, and I would recommend pulling that out of the 24,500 and then having an additional amount for the 6 neighborhoods. And not just a slush fund for anyone to come and ask for money, but it's a set amount for the neighborhoods that are organized. And then as others become organized, they could then become part of that program. But it's not just for anyone to come and ask for money. So I'd still like to propose that idea. So that would bring us up to, it would bring the 24,500 down to 20. But then we'd be adding, if we did 5,000 for 6 neighborhoods, we'd be adding 30.
If it were me, I would leave that to just the nonprofit, because the neighborhood's a nonprofit, and instead of muddying the water.
Okay, so that total then would be 50.
Well, right now,
If we did
the suggestion
5,000.
was a 24. If we increased it, then yeah, you would increase it to that. If that
Yeah,
was
you'd have
increased.
20 for the asks minus the college neighborhood, plus 30 for the neighborhood program.
Yeah,
So it'd be a 50 for the nonprofits.
yeah.
That's an increase of 50?
It
or
would be
increase
an
of
increase
30?
of 30.
5,000.
Rick?
Well, I can't advocate for throwing a hot chocolate party for any neighborhood in the city. And I think that's a foolish waste of taxpayers' money when we're talking about roughly half of the city who would not be included in those neighborhoods. I don't think that's a wise expenditure of tax dollars. And I think we need to make a point here that what we're doing is building a budget for publication. This is not final. We're just going to publish, we'll have a public hearing, and we'll hear from the public about what they think, how our money is being spent. Then we have to finalize the numbers. So whatever we do here is not the last word on where this budget's going to go. And I think we talk about throwing neighborhood parties for half the city. I think you'll hear about it on the hearing date. At least I would hope so. That there would be some input from a number of neighborhoods who are organized, but not under the NeighborWorks Pocatello umbrella. They do things on their own outside of that, and you've just excluded them.
So I've got Josh, Brent, and Corey, but I'm going to just throw my thing in here with the neighborhoods. I don't agree that it's the worst thing to do with tax dollars. I think that with the world the way it is, I think it brings a community together and it creates the opportunity. I would hope that they would be inviting the entire community opposed to just their neighborhood. I don't know that that would be the case, but that would be my hope. But my thought process, because this was really truly kind of my thought process, and that why it came forward was because I would hope that neighborhoods would start talking to neighbors. I don't think we have neighbors talking to neighbors anymore. I think that we have them driving by and you might wave once in a while. But I'll bet you I could go in just about any neighborhood and I could knock on any door and ask them who their neighbors were. And I'll bet you they couldn't name names. And the way the world is, I think it would be a good use of tax dollars. That's why it came forward. And so I just want to clarify that, why it came forward. And this council, you decide what you want to do with it. And I support that 100%. But with that, I've got Josh, then I've got Brent, and then I've got Corey.
My biggest concern is with the idea of creating one for each of the neighborhoods. Is I would want very clear delineations about which neighborhood associations qualify. How do you create a neighborhood association that does qualify? What is the money allowed to be used for? Because I would worry that as soon as we say, yep, here's this amount for these neighborhood associations, that next year you have, I like Rick said, I mean, there are people who do things outside of that umbrella, but what if we now have next year 87 proposals of neighborhood events? I struggle with the idea of just without clear delineation of like what qualifies, who qualifies, what is required in the organization level, to what extent does it need to be involved in other communities, invitations. I struggle. I'm with Rick on this one, actually. I love I live in that neighborhood. I love the activities that I'm a part of it. But I worry about the creation of this fund.
So right now, to answer your question, it would be your NeighborWorks neighborhoods that have been organized for decades and decades. Some of them are functioning, some of them are not functioning. College neighborhood is a functioning one.
Mm-hmm.
Bonneville neighborhood is a functioning one. In fact, they throw a great event, and they do include the entire community with a triangle party that they throw
college.
in. And so does the college invites. Well, I don't know how far their invitations went out, but I think that their idea would be to extend that out to be more. So right now, it would, your definition would be what the college neighborhoods are. It does exclude some neighborhoods. It does. But if those neighborhoods are organized, then I think that it would be something. I would personally, if the council did something like that, I would expect them to come and ask and explain to council what they were doing and go from there with it. But that being said, there again, I'll follow the lead here of the council. But to answer your question, that's what it would be right now.
Sure. If I can add one thing on the end, then I would, if we were to do this, I would be more comfortable with just the college neighborhood, because they filled out the proposal, they explained what it's for, and they came before council and did so. And so if that sets a precedent that these neighborhood associations can come and ask for money, and then we can consider them individually, then so be it. But I think there needs to be some credit.
That would be something that would go in next year's budget ask when they came.
Correct. And I would rather just do the college neighborhood if we're going to do this, because they follow the proper channels. Yeah.
Brent.
I have a question.
And
It's
then
actually
Corey.
outside of this neighborhood association
That's
meeting.
okay.
So if Corey had.
No, go ahead.
So the number we have up here, Gene, the sort of the bottom line, can you scroll over to that?
The 15?
So, yeah, sort of be, our total balance there of 15,000. Does this include the foregone?
Yes, the 1%.
That we would take the 1%? So we still have that issue.
I mean, if we can figure that out in just a minute, and eliminate that or leave it in there in just a minute.
With excess reserves.
Corey.
I had two things, and one of them was that exact thing that Brent just mentioned is the foregone. If we're leaving that in, if we're pulling it out, and what that looks like. But then also to the point that I agree with what Josh was just saying is setting the precedent for these neighborhoods to be able to get these funds. and looking at it as a future thing. And then, but I also agree with what you were saying too, is that it creates a community gathering. It creates a bond within our community. It encourages us to connect to one another. But in that, is the 24,000, can we exclude would it be appropriate to exclude the college neighborhood?
You can, right now, to answer that question, you can literally do anything you want. You can take that
Right.
complete 24,000 out.
Correct.
You can say, I want 12,000, not 24, and you can tell us where to put that. I mean, so.
Right. I'm just thinking, I don't know if it's necessarily appropriate, you got all the nonprofits that came in and then just to exclude the one when you got the whole group of them that came in. And so I think that if we do it, either all of them or none of them.
You're an all or none
All or
type of a
none.
guy, huh?
All or none.
All right,
of
so
No.
I want to answer the question that Brent asked. Can we go back to the foregone?
Scott.
Oh, I've got Scott. Scott, go ahead.
You can do that, and then I just want to come back to the neighborhood thing, so go ahead.
Go ahead and, no, let's talk
Well,
about that and then we'll go
Here's
back
my
here.
thing, for $4,500, you can throw a pretty good party. We're throwing that party.
I agree.
We have people that come in all the time and have asked for money. And I don't know what the college neighborhood does on top of that $4,500. I don't know if it's a $10,000 party, if it's a $2,000, what is it? Are we funding the whole thing? So I don't think we fund the whole party for them. I think if they want to have a neighborhood party, then the neighborhood comes together. And if we want to help them a little bit, I absolutely understand that. But I get that they came in front of us and did it the right way, but I'm almost guessing they're the only ones that knew that or were told, hey, if you want to do this, come here. The rest of the neighborhoods didn't know that, and they watch it, and I think it becomes a thing that sooner or later, we're either going to be in lots of money and be able to take care of them or not. I'd rather see that $4,500, if we're going to spend it, get split between every neighborhood, whether that's $800 a piece, there you go. That we will help you. We're not going to fund your party. We'll help you with it. That would be, in my eyes, that'd be the only way I could say, yeah, I'll vote for it. But to fund the whole party for one neighborhood, I can't, because I know what it's going to bring. And I know the other neighborhoods are going to go, really? And do I look at that neighborhood as a nonprofit? I don't. I don't look at it as a nonprofit. I look at it as an ask. The nonprofits are giving us a service, unless you're looking at that party as a service, and I don't. I don't think they fulfill that portion of it. I think it's just a ask from somebody for $4,500. That's it.
Okay. All right, let's talk about this foregone.
Mayor, can I
Sure.
roll back a little bit?
Yeah, why
I
not? Yeah.
apologize. Why not, right?
Yeah.
I want to have the council consider bringing back that admin, and I'll tell you why. We are 2 years behind on audits. We're not doing what we're supposed to do for the debt agencies or the rating agencies, and I just don't have time to do it, and we're end up doing all this admin work, and I can tell you how I can pay for that. Heather will kill me, but there's 45 grand laying around right now that I think I can pull, and I'll have Heather come up in a second to do that. And I can also, I think I can increase that interest level to where I can pay for that. And I'd be willing to step out on a limb and do that.
Okay. Corey?
So, to what Gene just said, I agree that the admin is probably pretty important, especially looking at what we're looking at now with preparing the budget, putting the budget together, all these different tasks that he's been tasked with concerning the money. And, but part of my thing is, how do we maintain that $80,000 in pay going forward? Is that budgetable? Is that able to come from the excess reserves? Like, what exactly does that look like? Because those excess reserves are gonna go at some point, but how do we maintain that? Now, I do agree that you can pull more money from the investments.
Even if it's a 2-year, just give us a chance to get over the hump. I'm okay with that.
But I do agree that that is an important ask.
Josh?
I would be in favor of moving the non-departmental asks back down to previous year's levels as previously recommended, and then using the extra 45,000 that finance says that they have in their department. I'm not comfortable trying to push the interest rate again. But if you get rid of that non-departmental asks and move it back down to previous years as Rick previously recommended, that would get us there.
So you're saying,
So before you do anything, and Gene's gonna get after me for this one, but I'm gonna say, right now, council, I would leave it where it is. And the reason I would is I've got a bunch of other department heads that are sitting out there right now saying, wait a minute, if I was sitting at the table, I could ask for my stuff back too.
fair enough.
Okay.
So I'm going to say we're not going to, and in fact, I'll actually campaign against that right now, just for that reason alone.
Okay.
Because I do have to look at the interest of the rest of the department heads. And if the council decides to bring that back at another time, then so be it. But I'm personally not comfortable for everybody else sitting in the audience. I just looked at faces back there and they weren't mad, but concerned. Scott knows what I'm talking about. And so I would recommend slowing the roll on that one just a little bit right now. But I'm interested in taking more interest from what he's saying.
I can't do it because I don't have the time.
Yeah, I know. And I don't think that he has $45,000 laying around in his budget. He doesn't. He would make a bunch of adjustments to make that happen. So I want to clarify that. I don't need that out there while the finance has 45,000 excess somewhere playing around. They don't have that. And so with that, I've got Corey, then Brent. Oh, no, then I've got Brent.
Yeah.
Brent and then Linda.
I still have my same question. I'm not clear. Does this number anticipate that we will take the foregone or not?
Yes.
Right now, yes, it
Yes.
does.
That we will take the foregone?
That's what this number shows, but I was going to ask the council, we got chasing the rabbit again.
Okay.
I was going to ask the council, where are you with that? I'm personally leaning more towards Rick than I am taking that foregone with that excess reserve, personally. And I think that I know it affects things in the future, but I don't know that this is the year to take a foregone. And I think foregone's going to go away, by the way, too. I think that that's what's going to go away before the excess reserves when you talk to legislators. But we've got one sitting over here, and I don't know what his thought is on that.
Your lights set on tax and rev too, so.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Linda?
We've talked about both the benefits of both foregone and excess reserves. I think in this budget, I'm leaning towards the excess reserves, taking out the 1% and using the excess reserves for that. But the other decision that I don't think have finalized, that I really want us to finalize, and I just hope the council would support, is the nonprofits. I don't want to take out that non-departmental money. It's a tiny amount in the scope of our budget, and I think we need to do it.
Okay. Corey?
I'm going to agree with you, Linda, with the foregone. And let's use those excess funds for sure. But after kind of listening to what the mayor said about adding back in the admin, it kind of gives me that same thought process when it comes to the different neighborhoods. We're going to give one neighborhood 4,500, and then the other neighborhoods, just like Scott was saying, like are looking at us like, what's going on, right?
I'm talking about all the,
That's right. But they were looped into that, correct? Into the
Yes, they were.
nonprofits. So if we exclude, because 4,500 is quite a bit of money
Yeah.
to throw at a hot chocolate party. And so minus that, I'm all in favor for the.
I think it's more than a hot chocolate party, but if the council.
It's a good party.
It is a
They
great party.
do a
It is a
good,
great
they do a
party.
good
Yeah,
thing.
beautiful party.
just a hot
I
chocolate.
think
That's
it's
true.
I think we're pulling a community together is what we're doing. And right now,
I
I
agree.
see a world that's pulling our communities apart.
Yes.
And I think it's important to pull communities together. And so, but that being said, I don't think it's not going to happen if you don't put that $4,500.
Right,
in there.
and I want to be fiscally responsible, and I know that they came up with the big portion of that, or maybe all of it last year. And so, if I remember right, that 4,500 is double what they did last year,
They did
correct?
3,200 last year.
So,
Yeah, not double.
okay, so they did 32. So, and how did they come up with those funds? I would imagine they went neighbor to neighbor and they pulled
that's what
these
happened, I
funds. And so at this point, are they still pulling more funds or are we paying for the whole thing, right? And so if they were to pull some more funds like they did last year and we were able to match or give half or give a portion, then that's one thing. But for us to give the entire 4,500, I think that's an excess of what we should be doing with taxpayer dollars.
I think the intent was to continue to do what they were doing, but invite
And make it larger.
more of a community. Yes,
Which,
more of the
if
community.
they were to pool their funds and
remember what she
then we
was saying.
contribute to it, that would give them the ability to make it larger and to reach outside of their
Sure.
geographic area. But I don't think that we should give them the whole 4,500 to be able to do that.
So they don't have to ask and get donations from the neighborhood.
So, because it would give them a buy-in from themselves, like they
Sure.
have to
Sure.
contribute to their own events. Sure.
Brent?
So what did we give, well, first of all, College Neighborhood Association was the only group that has made a formal application.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And what did we give them the previous year?
Nothing.
Zero.
This is the first time they've
Give
ever
them
asked.
zero.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we didn't give them zero. They didn't ask. Yes.
They did ask. So.
I'm in favor of contributing to them. Like, let's get that clear. I'm in favor of contributing to them. But if we look at those other nonprofits, they're also putting in work to gather funds themselves. And so we're contributing to what work they're already doing to gain funds. College Neighborhood should be the same thing. They should put in work to gain funds, and then we're contributing on top of them putting in work to gain funds.
Okay, I got Josh and then Scott.
Everything that is an ongoing expense that we fund with reserves this year, and every year after that, when those reserves reach a point where we're no longer comfortable spending, you have to find or cut that full difference. If you use foregone, even if it is 10,000 this year and then 13 next year and so on and so forth, that makes it a little bit easier when that time comes. And I worry that, so things like, for example, the nonprofits, if we choose to both cut out foregone and fully fund nonprofits, when that reserve reaches the level where we're no longer comfortable spending, you have no additional tax base to help cover that, and your reserves are done, which means we're done funding nonprofits moving forward. And we don't give them any money because we're going to reach a point that we have to reconcile that when either foregone or reserves, right? When we stop pulling from one of those two balances, if it's because reserves, we've got to a level we're comfortable, foregone, the legislator said you can't take it anymore, whatever that is, then we're dependent completely on our tax base. And foregone at least moves that base up a little bit. So when that day hits, we can still maybe put a little bit of money to non-departmental. I worry that day will come and that we're not worried about it right now because we have those reserves and we have the foregone, but both of those sources will eventually be gone. And whatever is left then is that base. And if we choose to fund ongoing things, I hope that everyone just considers what you plan on cutting when that day comes.
Go ahead.
I think we need to.
Oh, Rick, I'm sorry. I had Scott next
Yeah.
and then
go ahead.
Rick.
We're bouncing back and forth. I'm in favor of taking the foregone, so I'm just going to leave that there. When I look at the nonprofits, right, the 24,000 we're talking about is added money. It's not like we're getting rid of the nonprofits. It's free clinics asking for another $15,000, which takes them up to $40,000 from 25. So next year,
No, they were, it doesn't take them up to 40. It's, they were getting 10.
It's 25,
oh, okay, 25 total. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, my,
15
okay.
additional.
So we're looking at the added money that we're going to have to fund from here on out. They're not going to come back, I would think, next year and say, we don't need that 15. So if we want to add that money, I'm all right with it for the nonprofits. Again, I struggle with one neighborhood, right? I struggle with one neighborhood. If you wanted to spread that money out, or if that neighborhood came and said, we're doing a city party and our neighborhood's going to start it, then that's something different. That touches everybody. But kind of just like I said before, I mean, you have one neighborhood, these other neighborhoods don't know. So that's coming. And you know what? If you fund it, that's great. But I don't see it getting funded in the future. I just struggle with it. I mean, and I agree totally with it brings a neighborhood together. Does it bring a city together? Not if it's just one neighborhood. They're doing the right things. They're the model for it. I just don't know that we completely fund it. I struggle with that, so.
Okay, Rick.
Well, I agree with what Josh just said. I think we need to scratch a layer deeper before we spend those reserves. Bonnie's got sitting in front of her that huge stack of spreadsheet. And I think we need to make sure that those reserve funds are spent on projects that are capital projects, that are one-time expenditures, so we don't do exactly what you mentioned. But I think that's a matter of looking a little deeper into the budget and spreading the money differently, not just throwing it at personnel costs, which will be a problem down the road.
So 150,000 of that is that money that is allegedly going to get us a bunch more money.
That's out right now.
No, that's what we were talking about, pulling it from the reserves.
reserves.
the
Oh,
excess
right.
reserves.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't remember what else we were talking about pulling from excess reserves other than that. And then we brought up the
Just the foregone.
for the city or the foregone, that foregone amount. And so, I mean, we're talking $300,000. If the council is against that, then we go at it and look at and cut budgets $300,000. And or we look at one-time expenses in the budgets that we could pull out of the reserves, like you were just saying.
Yep.
Corey?
So can you go back to the expenses? To the,
Revenues?
no, to the asks.
Nonprofit.
Yeah, over 3%. So we have that. Where's the rebranding? Okay, so the branding and marketing, can that not come out of because it's one-time monies, can that come out of excess reserves? If it's a one-time?
Especially this first year when
Yeah.
we're getting it all
It
established.
can.
I think that makes sense. Instead of having it in the budget, which is an ongoing living document.
Okay.
Talking about.
Council, are you good with that?
So we're 100,000
So-
for the branding and
so you-
150 for the,
You pull the 100,000 for the branding and we plan on spending that. We still have to budget that, but we just put it at spending excess reserves and then the 150 for the,
Open
is it the
space.
open space plan?
yeah.
And that would also be budgeted to come out of excess reserves.
So the 150 is coming out of excess reserves or out of the current?
Excess reserves.
Excess, okay?
And that if you did that, just those two items right there, your balance is 115. You could take that 115 and take at least that much out of that 1% foregone.
Right. Yeah.
You would have $208,000 more to cut or to reallocate, and we wouldn't have to take
Any foregone.
any foregone.
Are we good with those two things out of excess reserve, council? I'm seeing heads nod, so I got one no.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm trying to look at the future here, and you just, all we're doing is moving the problem. So you can go this year, yeah, we didn't do it, and 2 years from now, you're gonna go, I wish we would have done it, because I've watched it over the years. I wish they would have done it. So that's,
What problem
Real
are we
quick,
moving?
Gene, I think we said that was going to come out of reserves, right?
Right, I was just wondering if we wanted to have it in here so we could pull it out of reserves, or we're gonna keep it separate out?
Well, it needs to be in the budget so that we can pull it out of reserves, and so,
Yeah, it's
So
just
if I-
out of tax.
If I leave it there, then that'll give us the number that we're gonna need for excess reserves unless we're just
yes,
gonna pull it.
yes. And the same with that $100,000. In fact, you might just put a note next to it like you did the other that says excess reserves so that we know what that looks like. And then that $100,000 up, the mayor and council.
And so, just to be clear, I'm backing that out of the mayor council's budget as is right now, and that would be taken out of excess reserves.
And then it would be, yeah, expended out of excess reserves.
Okay.
Who else had something?
So wait a minute. Is that 113457 that include the 100 or doesn't include the 100?
No, that GIS 11.3,
No, the mayor and council.
that 100,000
Is included.
is included in the mayor and council's thing
Now
there.
we've got it in twice.
No, no,
This is an expenditure, I'm backing it out.
it would be backed out of mayor and council and it would be added for the, that's why we've got that excess reserve.
But we
So,
need to
yeah.
have it in the budget.
It has to be budgeted and we can, but it will stay in the mayor and council's budget, but it will be paid for not from taxes,
I'm just
from,
wondering, on the
excess reserves.
spreadsheet, if it was already in the mayor and council number, and now we've added it in again?
No, so what happens, just let me show you, Rick. So if I zero this out, you'll watch that go down by 134. So now we have 134,000 that we have to do. Whereas if we put it in, that takes it out of the mayor's budget and reduces that top line.
it takes it out of the tax ask.
Yeah, it's not twice.
So to be clear, it will stay in the mayor and budget's budget, but it will be a one-time expenditure out of excess reserves. It is not a tax ask.
So we're still off $34,000.
Yes.
So we have that non-departmental as 30 grand?
Yeah, we need to
Yeah,
change
that's,
Needs to go away.
You want it zeroed out?
Yeah.
Or the
What
24.5?
did we decide
what
we're
do-
going to do?
What do
So
we
we didn't
what do we
decide
want to
on
do? So let's forget let's just say we've taken the college neighborhood out.
So then we had
Of
20,000.
That's 20.
What do you want to do with the other asks, council? The free clinic, the extra asks from all of the other,
Right, so we're,
the
So we're-
the Pocatello Chubbuck Visitor Bureau, the free clinic, the what else was there?
There's a whole
Let me remember.
there was only two.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was,
Aid for Friends, Family Services Alliance.
but we only had two. We had 15,000
Two
for the
ads.
free clinic and
There's only two that went,
Visitor Center.
the
three that
visitor
went
center.
up.
The visitor center that is, I think they're, what are they at, 15 now, and they wanted 20?
Right. There was 5,000 to
Yeah.
them and 15,000 more to the free clinic. Those were the
Yeah.
two.
So it was 20,000 if you take out
It
the
was,
college
yeah,
neighborhood.
yeah, it was 20,000, not 4,500.
So.
I would like to do
So it
at
was
least that 20.
Originally, if I can, sorry, just for clarification, we originally were gonna take out the 24,500, right? So if we just take out for the college fund, the 4,500, the 20,000 would stay in.
Yes.
And that 45, that's where we're at, right?
45 comes out.
Well,
Yes.
that's what we're deciding
Yeah, that's-
about
that's-
the
that's-
20,000
That's what
additional.
we're discussing here.
I'm in
so.
favor of having that 20,000 in there.
Okay, I've got, take the college neighborhood out, leave the other in.
Take it all out.
Take it all out, I've got one out. You're in?
Yeah,
Okay,
the 20,000.
the 20. Brent,
Leave the 20.
20? Corey,
20.
leave it,
Yeah.
Take it out.
out?
I don't know that I want to take it all out, but I think we could reduce it, which is,
Why do you keep trying to split the baby here?
well, I'm not, I just.
On that
look at-
side of the table, you thought it was
I'm
easy.
looking,
Now on
I'm
this
looking,
side, it's hard.
I'm looking at the
Ripping the arms off the
nonprofits.
baby.
I don't know about the visitor center, right? But I do know about the free clinic. So when I look at the free clinic and I know what they do in our city, if that would be something that I would support trying to help them a little bit more. The visitor center, I could lose that 5,000 easily. The free clinic, maybe you give them 8 versus a 15. I don't know. I mean, it's tough. If I got to make a choice between keep it all or get rid of it, I'd say get rid of it.
I think you're cutting the head off the baby.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so do you want to do something else then?
No.
You want to go to 8,000 and drop the 5?
If I could do
keep the
that,
5
if I
and
could
cut
do
the
that,
8?
that's what I would do if it was up to me. But
Well, you're up here at the
That's what I
dais,
would
so
do.
make the suggestion if you want.
There it
We'll
is.
find out.
I
Okay,
would
we got
give
a
them-
suggestion. 8 and, just 8, no 5.
So just 8 for the free
8 to
clinic.
the free clinic.
Yes.
Nothing on the other.
Yeah.
Corey?
So we're cutting Sika.
No, everybody
no,
keep,
no, no.
those are just the asks for
Everything stays
more.
the same. What we're talking
only
about
increase.
I see what we're saying.
Only increases.
You're taking the additional from 20 to 8.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll back that.
No.
No.
All right, well, I got 4 yeses on that and 2 nos, and so we're going to take it to 8. And then they'll have to argue over it in the
So
future.
we're going to take the original 24.5,
Down to 8,000 for the free clinic.
so that would be
Decrease would be 19.
19.45, yeah.
That would be 12.5,
Yeah, 12.
So,
Yeah.
8 and 4,500.
Because the new increase
the-
was, the new increase was 24.5?
Right.
No, 8 is what we're keeping in.
Is 8,
So you're getting rid of
additional
12
8
and
instead of
4.
a-
so they're asking for
15.
15, right? We're talking
Oh,
about
and then-
reducing it by 8.
And then 5.
No, so
No, taking it to 8.
So the total
Taking 15
25,
to 8.
15 to 8,
So
not
reducing it
reducing their, okay.
7,000. And then reducing the 5,000,
So what do we have?
right?
it would be 16.5, right?
We're taking out
16.5.
the 5 for visitors.
5,000 for the visitors, 7,000 for the free clinic, 4,500 for the college.
Yeah, 16.5 is good.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Somebody,
recap those numbers, that doesn't add up.
that's what I was going to say. That doesn't to me.
12.5.
So what we have, we've removed we had 24, 5.
8
We
from 24.
lost the 4, 5.
Yeah.
So we got 20.
Wait,
And then we dropped the 5, so we're down to 15, right?
Okay.
And then we cut 15 to 8, which is
7.
7.
Well, if the 45's out, then it's just 8.
because that number represents
Yeah,
what
so
we're
it should
taking
be
out.
Oh, that's
That
what we're
is the
taking.
number we're taking out.
Out, yes. So
Not
we're
what
taking
we've
out the
kept in.
4,500, out the 5,000, out the
All right.
7,000.
And it's the number taking out, being taken out of 24.5.
Yeah.
And not 20.
Right.
So it's correct.
Right.
Okay.
So we gotta find $11,000 to cut somewhere else.
No, that 11,000, that's
Just
a positive.
positive.
That's positive.
That's a
Oh,
positive.
yes, I'm sorry.
We're not in the hole.
That's a positive number. Now, with that positive number, though, we still have the foregone
Yep.
in.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's you. No, I was, yeah.
I was
Okay,
just gonna
Josh,
say,
go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I would like to finalize a decision on foregone, but you started talking, so I tried to pull my hand back and,
Sorry.
no, you're okay.
Okay, so who's going?
I don't need anything. No,
You're
keep
waiting for me
going.
for it. I was just saying that the foregone is still in here if we want to take that foregone and keep it in, or if we want to take it out. That's the decision in.
Gene, can you
I
take us
don't
back to
know, I might
revenues?
just add, Council, I had them order lunch. I don't know if lunch is here yet, and you might want to just take a break and think about everything that we've done here before we go much further than this.
Before we do that, can we look at the revenue?
I'm sorry?
Revenues?
Well, I don't know if we can go to lunch because I don't know if it's here yet. So yeah, let's look at revenues.
That's something?
Okay, that's it?
Yeah. I just wanted to look at it. Just want to see what.
That didn't take enough time.
Yes, Brent.
So I have a technical question here. 23. So we don't know what our tax revenues are going to be yet,
Not
correct?
exactly, no.
We don't know what the new construction values are going to be. So what happens down the road? Let's say that our taxes are up, the new construction values are up, we have more money than we anticipated, and it might not be required that we need to take the full 3%. Am I right?
Yes.
Can we, and maybe we only have to take 2%, say. At some point, can we add some of these items back in then, or we're gonna be lost?
So what happens with that is in the middle of,
You publish high.
okay, in the middle of, thank you, Ann. In the middle of July, we have to publish that number. Once that number is published, that published number is set in stone. We don't get to change that up. If where it's not stone is where that rock hits the dirt, we can dig a hole under that rock a little bit and reduce it. We just cannot add another rock to it.
We can go down, we can't go up.
Yes.
He's got fancy metaphors.
Yeah, I'm just,
I don't know if fancy is the descriptor.
I wouldn't fancy either,
I was
but yeah, you
being
cannot
generous.
increase the number.
Okay, so let's say,
You can
just for
decrease.
right now, we agreed to take the foregone. Come to find out, we're gonna have more revenue. Can we then, at a later date, choose not to take the foregone?
So, no, well,
I don't think so.
Well, if we file the L2.
Ann
we're
is
done.
saying no.
Yep.
I don't believe so, but I do have a question for Ann because she was neck deep in this last year and this, I'm sorry, Ann, to even ask, because I think I know the answer.
Just, I back
Who
up.
did?
Jared's your
So
backup?
to take the foregone, any of the foregone that we take, we will have a public hearing on that foregone. And we have to explain exactly what we're using that foregone for. Is that correct?
No, you have to have your public hearing on any foregone you're not taking and adding to.
Okay, I have it backwards. All right.
Correct.
That answers my question. Thank you. So I'm just going to say, no, you don't need to, it depends. We're going to hear it depends.
It depends.
We're going to hear it depends.
Actually, no, you're not going to hear it depends.
Oh, my gosh.
It all is contingent on. No. You actually do have to do a public hearing if you use foregone or if you don't. So here's the funny thing. The way I read it, and we were just going through it with Gene the other day, if you were to approve taking the 1% foregone for O&M, we would have to do a notice and a public hearing for that process. And then if the numbers from the county come out and your 3% is actually less than 3%, which it traditionally is every year, you're now banking foregone again. And I would advise doing another public hearing and another notice and another resolution, banking that foregone difference. Even though you took some foregone, you might realize some foregone in the same budget cycle. So both aspects of foregone require a notice and public hearing and resolution. So just a little difference there. I don't think we've ever seen it. In my time, we haven't ever taken foregone, but that's one thing we looked up and yeah, it's both ways. clear as mud.
So you have, yeah, so you have to.
But once we turn in our paperwork to the county that says this is how much tax money we're taking, we cannot go back and say, oh, never mind, we changed our minds. We don't want to take
Our
that 1%.
3% wasn't what our 3% we thought was. We're going to change it, so yeah.
Okay. So let's say for purposes of building this budget and getting it to balance right now, we decided, okay, let's go ahead and take the foregone. And then we find out that the new construction value is way up. We're going to have way more money than we need. So might be we don't need the foregone. Can we do that, or are we locked?
As long as we haven't turned in our L2 yet.
When is the L2 due?
First Monday in September?
Yeah.
Second, something like that. It's the very first part of September. So you could make a motion at your budget adoption meeting that says, I move to approve the budget as presented minus the 3% or minus the 1% in foregone amount.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All right, so council, what I'm going to suggest, as I see them walking in right now, that we break for lunch. We take, I would say 30 minutes, but I know it's going to be 45 and probably an hour. But we take a minute to just think about what we've done here and make sure this is where you want to be as you eat lunch. And then we come back and start our meeting after lunch. I would say, what's a good timeline?
1 o'clock.
45 minutes.
1 o'clock.
Okay, 1 o'clock, we'll be back. Thank you.
Could I get a copy of the revenue?
Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us after our lunch break. We'll go ahead and continue the discussion that we've had on our budget. Jean, do you want to bring us up to speed what we're talking about, or do you want me to take that?
Can I interject two things before we start, Mayor?
Sure.
One is, I was talking to the President Council, is this time, there's possibly a 200,000 shortfall on the revenue side, which is this delinquent,
Yeah, that
Line 22.
delinquent tax.
yes, that could possibly go away. Another thing that was brought to my attention, my error, is we're short on the expense side, one body for Heather, 116K, is that right?
Roughly.
Just in the transition of
Moving the risk management from HR to legal and the legal position
potentially
over.
there's a
So, yeah.
300,000 shortage that I think we should address. My apologies for that, but it is what it is.
So my thought on that was that we would get the funding source and get everything, and we'd be talking about that in our study session in July before it goes to publish. But it's good for the council to know that that is out there and that we'll be working on that, so we've got a funding source and what that looks like.
So we'll take care of that later then.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, because I heard roughly, and I want to make sure we know where we are, but that position is there. It's been pulled from legal, and we've got to get that funding situated before we move much past that. If you'd go back, within a week, council, we should know about this, that if you go back to that interest on delinquent taxes, hopefully within a week. It's a court case that's been heard up north, and we think there's a good chance that it stays, because we don't think there's any legal precedent or reason for the county to do what they were doing up there, but we'll just have to see, and we may have to cross that bridge also in July when we have an answer from that court. court date. But there again, with that, we will have sat down and have a discussion so that it will give you, council, a little bit of an idea of where we can make that money up and stuff if needs be. So.
But we are for sure short. What was that number? I didn't get it written down.
HR department is short roughly 116.
Okay.
But we've got to finish moving the position over and seeing what money we have already before we get too excited about that, I think.
Okay.
So do you want me to just leave status quo, or do you want me to add that to the expense line now?
Council, you want them to add that, or?
Yeah.
Let's add it. I think there's some funding that's in the budget right now that is, my concern is there is some funding in the budget right now that will offset that 116. So.
Do you have an exact number, Heather?
It's the same as your G14 or your systems position.
You're killing me. Okay. Hang on. My apologies.
Yeah, over that. Well, yeah. Management assistant.
Is it the one?
Is it the financial technician?
Yeah.
Okay, the 111.
Question.
Scott?
And when I look at this, I know we have personnel savings across the board for each department. Does that help us I mean, if you have savings, let's say, in the fire department or police department to fund another person
That would-
until you get them
That
billed.
would help us,
I mean,
yes.
some of that money help.
That would help, yes.
I mean, you can use it that way,
Yeah.
right? One department to another as long
Yeah.
as it's personnel. Okay.
Yeah, we can. Linda?
I'm just wondering, because we were going to deal with that at a later meeting, and you said there's some money to offset it. Do we want to put it in here?
Yeah, I
now?
would put it in there. I don't see anything wrong with putting it in there.
Okay. Just as a
because I
kind of
don't wanna- I
placeholder?
would rather have it in there and not lose it and not forget about it. And
Okay.
So it's there, it's happened. We're in the process of
Figuring it
replacing Ann. Ann is, in my mind, a champ because she is moved to the Parks Director. In Heather's mind, she's a quitter, and so it depends on the perspective. But there is money there for it, yeah.
Okay.
But not all of it is there, so we have to
This is a
figure out
reminder
what
of
it is. This is
just
going to remind me to make
figuring
sure we
it out.
have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't want it to mislead us.
Yeah. And then we have that other delta that may or may not happen. It depends on judges' interpretation and stuff from up north that we may or may not have to address also in July when we're, before we send numbers to be published. Brent?
Question for Gene there. Hey, Gene, could you go to your main spreadsheet back, please?
Yes.
So the two items there where we have coming from excess reserves, we have it would be the branding, that's going to get out of reserves, right?
Yes.
And then we have the planning and development line item.
Yeah.
So that's a negative number. One of them's a positive and one of them's a negative number. Is that right?
Yes, the 150,000 I'm adding into it because this is an expense, right?
Okay.
So everything's negative. So to add it in, I'm positive, the 150 and the 100.
So we're adding that back in
Yes.
addition to what
And
was
then I'm
originally
pulling the
budgeted.
100 out.
Got it.
The 100,000 was already
It's coming
in,
out.
so.
Right, okay, I understand. Thank you.
Hey, Gene, for my mind, can you designate those funds with like the 1, 2, and the 3? Because it'll calculate the reserves, right?
Yes, so if we do if you say like 99,000,
Yeah.
if I take 2, put 2 in here, it'll zero that out and it'll
Oh, okay,
lower
I
the
see.
reserves, right?
I see.
That make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So there may be some manual work I'll have to do on.
I thought it ran down. That's, okay. Okay. So are we on to foregone? So the question that we left with, and I asked you to, council, to consider, think about, I don't know if anybody thought about any of it, but that was the foregone balance, the 1% foregone. Corey?
So from the last conversation we were having about this, there is a certain window of opportunity where we could forego this, right? We could say we're gonna add it now and then forego it. But we don't have a huge window to do it, but there is a window of opportunity to do that, correct?
There's a window of opportunity in July in our study session to remove it if we wanted to. And then there's also a window at the public hearing, not the public hearing, but at when we have the ordinance, that meeting, that August study session is where I would hope we would give some direction so that the ordinance can be prepared and Jared won't pull his hair out up here.
I'm not in major favor of just burdening the citizens, but I do see the benefit of having this added in and looking at just future uses and things that we're looking for to continue to grow our community. I do think that it is appropriate. And so if there is a window of opportunity to remove it down the road, I would be for leaving it in.
Okay, Brent and then Josh. So Brent.
Follow up on that. Well, we have a window of opportunity to forego the foregone after we know what our true revenues will be.
We're not going to know what our true revenues are until at least the middle to end of September. And that's still
Not final.
not final until the state puts its stamp of approval. And if the state tax commission does not approve that, then it would be January before we know what our real final number is.
So
But
we have
most
to make
likely-
this decision before.
Most likely it we will know what our number is the end of September. Most likely.
So the concept that we could put it in now and then wait for the true income numbers.
No.
And then make that decision, that's not
No.
gonna happen.
No,
Okay.
no, it won't. Josh and then Corey.
The one other comment that I would add is that in terms of the reserves, we know that departments have budgeted things in those reserves. They've set aside money in the general fund that they have saved up for projects. And so while that number may say 7 million, there are some already earmarked from it. And so I don't think that's necessarily a true 7 million of just, yep,
I believe that you're talking about Fund 78,
yep.
separating the two. Fund 78 is separate.
So that's not included in the 7
That's
million?
a different-
Okay, okay. So that is just,
That's set aside for capital improvements,
Right.
things like that.
okay, okay.
Okay, Corey?
So the foregone, it goes to public hearing. Am I right on that?
Jared, you want to come up here and explain in a little more detail what you had explained before? Because we recognize it's all contingent on.
So basically, anytime you mess with foregone at all, whether you take it, whether you reserve it for future possible years' use, you have to have a notice and a public hearing and pass a resolution based on what you want to do and what the public hearing guides you to do. So what I was trying to explain before, and I probably didn't do a very good job, is if you want to take foregone, the 1% for O&M, you would still have to do notice and public hearing, and then you would add that to the budget, or the appropriations ordinance for the next fiscal year budget. But what would possibly happen is you would have, if you take the 3%, or your intention is to take 3%, we get the numbers from the county very late in the process. We find out that that 3 was actually 2.4 or something like that. You now have another bit of foregone that you could reserve for future years. You don't have to, but you could, and so you'd have another public hearing and another resolution that would set aside that foregone for future years. So you could, in the same year, be taking some foregone and using it, and reserving foregone for future years. But the way I read it, basically, if you do anything with foregone, you need to go through that public hearing, that notice, public hearing, and resolution process.
And that changed, what, 2 years ago?
2 or 3, yeah.
It's fairly recent.
Yeah.
And I don't know about I think you might have always had to go through that process to use foregone. I think what changed a few years ago was to reserve foregone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Brent?
And that's a separate public hearing from a regular budgetary public hearings?
Yes.
The code actually dictates that the public hearing can be done at the same time as the budget hearing. That's really hard to do because we don't often know the foregone amount at that point because we don't have the final numbers from the county. The State Tax Commission has basically made a ruling that once you get that number, you do it as quickly as you can, but in some years, we've done it as late as November because it takes that long to get the final number of what that reserved foregone is.
That's to reserve it. To use the foregone, typically, we will have a public hearing for the budget itself, tax ask, and then you would have a follow-up, another public hearing right after we close that one for the foregone and the use of the foregone. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's how I would absolutely recommend doing it. So it makes that window that you're kind of discussing really tight and out of our control because we have to wait for the county to give us those numbers to see where we actually land on our projections. Possible, but not guaranteed.
I will say that Christie at the county tries to get us those numbers as quickly as she can. They just literally are not done with the Board of Equalizations until August. And so.
And then it has to go to the state, or they can appeal to the state after that.
Yeah, they can appeal to the state. And if the appeal to the state, we will not get any back until November. We won't, or January, we won't really know what it looks like, so. So what do we want to do?
I got a question.
Yes.
When's the last time the city took foregone?
Last year.
Did we take some last year?
No, we reserved it. We've reserved it.
We've reserved foregone. I remember in the last,
Since we've been on.
in the last 14 years, I think we've taken foregone once.
I'm sorry, Mary, that last how long?
14. Last 14 years that I'm aware of, the city's taken foregone once. And so,
I need
It wasn't in
clarification.
the last 6.
no, it wasn't in the last 6,
Can
so
you-
it's been.
Can you clarify for me the difference between taking foregone versus reserving foregone?
I'll do my best. So if you take it, our reserved foregone amount, I saw it on there somewhere, 4.2 million, I think. That's over the last several years of the amount less than 3% that we have taken as part of our budgetary process. So every year, that number that we don't take foregone gets a little bigger. And so if we take less than the 3% this year, which inevitably we will, even if we plan for 3%, when we reserve foregone, we reserve whatever that difference is between 3% and the amount we actually ended up taking based on the numbers we get from the county. And that puts it into the pile of money that, it's not truly a pile of money because we didn't ever take it. It's just an amount that we could take up to those statutory limits of 1 and 3 that just continues to pool. And then when we actually take it, when we use it, which we've done maybe once in the last 14 years, not since I've been here actually, it would come out of that total of,
That pool.
yeah, that pool of available money that's actually still has to be collected. So yeah, it would come out of that. At the same time, we would be putting a little bit back in when we are less than the 3%, no matter how insignificant that is. So like I said, we could do both in the same year, but it affects that conceptual number of the amount available to cities that is less than 3% that they've been taking over the last several years. When it started, I don't know. I just know that our available amount is 4.2 million and change. I hope that helps.
Not at all.
Councilmember Marchand.
So if we don't take it, and we just do whatever, we don't take it, we move on, next year they say it's gone, that 4 million's gone, just gone.
Yeah,
What we haven't touched, we lose. And it's just,
We no longer have the ability to tax for any
Right,
of,
exactly.
those amounts that were less than the 3% that we've been doing for years.
But the odds are, if a piece of legislation passed like that, it would be phased out to give cities the opportunity to step in and take it. Idaho Falls took all theirs 3 years ago.
Yeah,
I
something
think it
like
was
that.
3 years. They stepped in and took all their foregone, out of a fear that the legislature would pass that. What probably will happen is there'll be an opportunity to phase out your foregone and make a decision, not suddenly, but gradually if you decide you.
but have we fallen behind over the last 14 years of never, ever touching it? And in my opinion, we have. By not taking it, it's put us back, and then we've had to fight for money every year after.
So remember how we get the foregone. The foregone is there because we did not take the full 3%.
Right.
And math works out that if you are taking the full 3% and you're not banking any foregone, then over time, you are also making those increases. And so we have not taken that 3% because nobody likes to hear that their taxes are going up 3%. And then there's stories out there about how bad the city is and all of that stuff for taking it. But we haven't taken it, and so because you haven't taken it, that's where that foregone came from. And they're just saying you can go and get that in the rears if you would like to,
Well, I think if
and you
it's
have
gonna-
the authority to do
Right,
so.
go away. I'm just looking at it going, I don't know, to me, I get sometimes your taxes go up, but I look at the services that this city gives and does every day, and I want to maintain that. I don't want to lose it. I
Absolutely.
want to maintain it, so.
Absolutely. So I got Josh and then Brent.
I want a hypothetical question, just to make sure I understand this correctly. If our city new construction is an increase based on construction that occurred in that year, correct?
Yes.
And then after that, it is added to the base, the property base, tax base.
Yes.
What is the rate at which we tax new construction?
Would be more of a Gene question than me. I don't think you do tax new construction.
How do we get that money then?
I think that what.
Is that the
what-
fees?
What happens is, you have the fees, but what happens with the new construction, how it's $400,000 is what we're anticipating. If you build a house and you close on it in July, half of the year is gone. That new construction money that we're allocated covers that second half of the year, and then in January, when you start paying that property tax, you go from
Rick's
there.
shaking his
Rick's
head.
shaking his head. Explain it then.
If it occurs in the second half of the year, you don't get it next year. That was one of the issues we had in rev and taxes last year. We tried to get it prorated and it didn't pass. So it's either all or nothing. You either get it in the tax year or you don't get it at all. So there's no partial. You get an occupancy permit from Richard on a piece of new construction, it's assessed in January. And you pay your taxes are always paid in backwards. So it'll be assessed in this fiscal year, but you don't start collecting the money on it till January when you get your tax notice on the valuation that was appraised last July. It's a complex formula, and I don't think it's right, but I couldn't get it changed. I've argued and fought and screamed and hollered and argued with clerks, and we couldn't get it done.
the point that I wanted to raise, because we do get that money to an extent.
80% of it on new construction.
Okay, 80%.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
we get 80% of the new construction, which means when the growth of the city outpaces the 3% authority for taxation and for budget increases, it means that every time our city budget relative to the population and the tax base goes down, that we add more and more people, and the ability to tax at a similar percentage to keep up goes down, and we have to cut services. We have to cut opportunities to provide for the citizens of Pocatello. And that's why I'm so in favor of taking foregone, is because we need to keep that base up. We have to keep that base equal with our population growth, because of it is a losing game for us based on the way the legislature has written the rules, so that we are inevitably going to reach a point where we can't keep up. And we're going to always have to continue to downsize, even as our population grows, relative to the services we provided in the past.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I can address that. The only relative fallacy, and you're not wrong, it's just that you can't grow a city on residential construction. You go bankrupt if you're building a city on residential construction and residential appraisals. If you don't have commercial and industrial construction, you can't provide the services that will pay for themselves of just building houses. And that's the problem of residential construction and bedroom communities that try and do that around an industrial commercial-based community.
And at the end of the day, it's a complex problem, and it's one that I think that there are problems in the creation of those rules, and it's the reason why I still am in support of the 1% to try and increase that base.
Mayor, if I can, I think there's something we need to really consider. Again, it is not an easy answer, right? I was researching inflation last night, right? Gas is up 41%. Food's up 19%, cars are up 19%. This is probably the one year, right, where we're gonna need to take, and again, I don't like it, because I'm a taxpayer too, but we're not gonna be able to retain and keep employees if we don't consider, again, it's not an easy solution.
And the problem is we're heading into a probable recession year.
Yes.
When people are going to have less money to spend to pay taxes on this year, next year.
Yeah, we're in a stagflation environment, right? Wages are not keeping up. Not an easy thing.
Yes, Brent.
So just want to make sure that I understand this. The foregone is not an amount of actual money that we have. It's not like a bank account. It's simply our capacity to tax a little bit more than the 3% that we're maxed out at. Is that right?
It's, if you will, it's a reserve.
It's the reserve
Going
ability
backwards.
to tax.
Yes, it's not an actual cash reserve.
Right. So if we take the reserve, we are going to have to raise taxes a little bit to do that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we can do that to the tune of 1% of our total budget.
On the OEM of that 32, of this 32 million, which is the tax value, estimated tax value right now.
Right.
1% for the O&M for the foregone.
Okay. And on the foregone balance that we could go back and get, we have $4 million in there. So if we took 1%, say every year, we got 10 years worth of reserve buildup. Is that about right? Okay.
Well, 1% for O&M and 3% for capital expenditures.
Okay.
So you can spend technically those two buckets each year.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so you'd be talking 1.3 or 1.2 million in one year if you took the full 1% for O&M and the full 3%
3% for capital.
expenditures.
Okay. All right.
I'm not suggesting either of those.
No,
I'm just,
I understand. God, I understand. Thank
But
you.
if we're throwing complex things out there, we only have a max of 8% above that we can take. And so you may or may not be able to get to that 1 point whatever million the attorney was advocating for.
For the
He
record,
was
I was
not
not advocating for anything.
He was not
Curious
advocating
which
for
way the
that.
minutes reflect at the end of this.
He was not doing that. But yeah, we have another complex mathematical problem that we have to fit underneath also.
Right. I wanted to just echo what Gene was saying. We're in a very difficult situation. I think, it might have been Tom had mentioned that some of the expenses were 11% up this year. And now everyone else, we're proposing a 3%. Even if we go at 3%, we're still expecting everybody to cut back. So it's a difficult decision.
Yeah, in real terms, right?
Yeah.
In real terms, we're losing
In
ground.
real terms,
A 3% increase isn't an increase.
even if we took the
And that's,
ones.
all I wanted to say is, that's part of it. You're right. People aren't going to have as much money, but when I look at people, I also look at our employees, and I don't think we've made the jump over the years, in my opinion, to where we should have to be whole there. And I think we're working on it now. That helps that problem. So, I mean, we provide a great service. I don't want to see that change.
Okay? We're at a standstill, council. Are we leaving it in or are we taking it out?
I'm out.
We're going out.
I'm in.
One in.
I'm in.
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 3 ins.
Yeah, I'm in.
4 ins.
Let's leave it in.
5 ins. Okay. So right now, as of right now, we'll leave it in. And it'll give you some direction on how to prepare for the study session in July as we're moving forward. Okay? Council, is there anything else that you have that we would need to discuss? I'm going to ask that in just 1 minute. I don't know why we would come back if they don't have anything else now. Anything else that is of interest that we need to talk about, council, as far as the budget's concerned? Okay. Then with that, seeing no other things. Finance, you have direction on how to prepare for the study session in July and how to prepare the numbers for the publication on the.
Do we want to go over the other tax areas that we have not covered?
Are we balanced or no?
No, I don't think so. I think we still have to, let's see.
What questions do you have?
Give me 1 second. Sorry.
Okay.
There is one question which will, we talked about putting aside, some reserves each year for Fund 70, or for the capital improvement. So I need some direction. This is going to come back to your favorite topic on the foregone, right? Because I was hoping to bring in, about $1 million in that. And so I had put in this budget, the 3%, a 3% raise in, for the foregone on the capital. And so I would like some direction on that as to whether we want to pass on that or whether we want to try and do that.
So, okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, can we, those the current reserves that we have, that we talked about, the 7 million fund, can we just begin moving some of that money into a capital contingency fund?
So maybe that's not a bad idea. I thought this Fund 78 money was in the budget now.
It is, but it's in a separate line because it's,
Separate line, but that does not change any of the tax ask with that dollar amount that we have now, the tax ask and or the foregone ask?
It would change the foregone ask if we did not, because again, it's not in the general fund, right? It's a separate line item on the tax side. Get the right place here. It's a separate, right here, hang on. Library. So under the street capital improvements right here, this line item on the revenue side, the maximum tax that we can do without going to the foregone is 0.04%. And so I had included the 3% foregone for capital improvement to get that $1 million. So I just need some direction on whether we want to cancel that out or whether we want to do that.
So if I understand what you're saying is not only the foregone that we've been talking about, the 1%, this is over and above that.
Yes,
So this is 4%.
separate though, right? And it is 4%. One is for the O and M, and one is for the capital. And I know it's a very sensitive thing, so I just wanted to put it in here to get some direction.
Corey?
What does it look like, the 0.04? Is that the 0.04 right there, or is that the 3%?
That's 3%. It's 3% is like 970,000, so it would be about $1.2 million is what the ask would be at 4%, including all of those.
I'm all for improvements and maintenance and whatnot, but I'm not for another 3% tax.
Okay.
From what I've heard from the council up here is that is a non-starter, and I would pull that 3%. And then we need to have the discussion about moving reserves to there, so. Yes. Brent?
So 3% is the maximum that we could ask for.
For the 3% the maximum we can ask for capital.
Right.
Yes.
Right, a 3% foregone. But we could do less than that.
Yes,
I mean,
we could.
So what does that look like if you're at 1%? To match what we've done on the other.
G43. It's 320 something.
Just in thirds.
It's,
1%'s about 324.
That's what it looks like if we do 1%. And that's got the 4% included in it, the 0.00.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Why is that 1% different than the other 1%?
Because that includes, off to the right, you see the
The 4
maximum
mills?
levy. It includes that 0.004% in addition to the 323.
Corey, and then Josh, did you have something?
So I agree that there needs to be something done in this regard to the capital improvements, but I just don't think that the 3% is it. I don't think that the 1% really is it either. I mean, that's a heavy ask. So the minimum is that 0.04, right?
Well, that's the maximum tax levy. We could go 0 across. That's just included in the total 3% of the tax
Oh, okay.
max. The maximum rate we can hit on this particular tax area is 0.004%.
So, council, I'm going to recommend that you don't do anything in that capital improvements fund this year yet again. And we have a discussion in the future of moving money from the excess reserves into that for capital improvements when we need it.
I agree. Let's don't do the levy either.
I don't think you do the levy. I think you do nothing. My understanding was that was all in that ask to start with, so I misunderstood where that was, so. Corey, or Josh?
One quick clarification. That 0.04% isn't that in our 3%?
It is part of the 3%, but it's specific to the reserve, the capital improvement fund.
So was your recommendation then to do 2.96?
if that's what it comes up with. I wouldn't mess with that at all at this point, quite frankly.
Okay.
It's-
There are only some of those categories that have a maximum percentage.
Yeah.
We can still do a 3% if that's what the council decides, but max out those other
Oh, got it.
individual
Okay.
categories.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
And so,
I'd have to look at excess reserves.
But we're just gonna say, don't do anything in capital improvements because we're gonna do reserves. Yeah, I like that.
there
Yep.
is money right now, there is some, not a lot of money in the capital improvements that has not, in Fund 78 that has not been spent and not been set aside by departments. But I think that's a discussion at another time. That's something that in the future, if we have something come up, then we can have a budget amendment. We'll have a couple budget amendments anyway with grants and things that if we need to, we'll move money from there to Fund 78 to support that and have money there. But after listening to the discussion about the 1% O&M and not knowing where we are going to end up with that, I would strongly recommend not beating that dead horse again, because we're going to end up at the same spot, I think.
Yep.
So I don't think it's going to come back alive. So just pull that then, and then we'll go from there.
Something about rocks and digging.
Yeah, rocks and digging things and
Dig a
stuff.
hole
So,
under the rock, you just can't
yeah,
put a rock on top of the rock.
that's what we're doing. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else, council? Okay, then, with that, finance, you have a direction now to prepare for the July session. I see no reason for us to have a meeting tomorrow, budget meeting, and so we'll cancel that budget meeting tomorrow. Madam Clerk, will you put out a notice that that's been canceled? And with that, we are adjourned.